time to hit play and let the RSS feed have its way. It's time for episode 25 of Theme Park Workshop.
Good evening and welcome to Theme Park Workshop, a Halloween Horror Nights review. Please open the Scareoscopic picture book that accompanies this podcast. You'll know it's time to turn the page when you hear this sound.
Good. Your story begins in the middle of November, on a night much like today. You find yourself wandering, surrounded by reminders of Yuletide, as pumpkins and ghouls give way to chestnuts and cheer. You wish it wasn't over. The new season's come too soon. You wonder, there has to be another way out.
With the start, you look up, and suddenly you're under a full moon. You've lost track of time and direction, and you're standing in a graveyard, the early fog covering the Nettlewood's ground.
And you are alone.
Until the spirits of the dead break free from their rest, animating the remains of their many generations, and the jangles of angry scarecrows approach, and you meet the pale-faced mask of the boogeyman.
This concludes the living portion of the program.
As you awake into a deadly unrest, you behold the freaky horrors of Halloween. Black cats frolic among the dead, and monsters surround you from all sides. Vampires, werewolves, mummies, blood-soaked cryptids beyond description.
More ghosts from sea and land and sky, and zombies with bugs crawling around and through their corrupted cadavers meet in this reunion sinister and fantastic, but they are here for one thing.
As you follow their gaze, you see an orange beast presiding over the graveyard and its insidious inhabitants, joyously receiving offerings of Halloween.
As his flames surround him and his power grows greater, he welcomes you to join his minions of mayhem. As you answer the call, the cries of an ancient coven, the same that conjured his darkness long ago, echo through the night.
Now that you have joined the followers of the Gordish Ghoul in an after-hours nightmare, one thing grows clear. No longer will they hide in the shadows. No longer will they go alone. And never more is it too early or too late for the dark delight of this spooky season. For now, every day is Halloween.
I get a grin again. Film is a weapon. Weapon.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
I will keep these lights up until the day I die. If I think there's a chance that Will's still out there.
The caretaker is evil. It's alive!
Hey everyone, welcome to Theme Park Workshop. We are on episode 25, and we are going to be talking about all things Halloween Horror Nights 31, including our rankings for Scarezones and houses, and some things that we liked and that we probably didn't like about this year's event. I'm Bella, and with me we have...
Hello, this is Kelley.
And this is Adam.
Slay!
Boo.
Happy Halloween. Well, it passed. Merry Christmas, everyone. And
Hey, my shirt says every day is Halloween, so
yeah, but
live it up.
It's true.
I'm okay. For the viewers at home or listeners at home, Adam's wearing his Halloween shirt. I'm drinking out of my Blinky cup, but I am wearing a Sesame Street Christmas sweater. So we're in that vibe. We're leaving Halloween, getting into Christmas.
I just constantly have to be celebrating something. So
yeah,
it's Christmas now, but I am still mourning Halloween. And for those people that are like, what about Thanksgiving? You can celebrate Thanksgiving next to the Christmas tree. We can celebrate both, okay?
exactly.
I mean, if Kelley can be Killer Kells all year, You know, she's still the Killer Kells in our heart.
I am Killer Kells, but my name on Twitter is Jingle Kells right now. So
Cute. Mine is Bella Lou Who.
And I'm the Adam before Grinchmas.
I love it.
Wow, we're so cute.
Look at us. The second it turned November 1st, changed.
Yeah, yes. Well,
Sorry,
actually, it's
Horror
funny.
Nights.
I didn't change mine until I saw Adam, and I was like, oh, it's Christmas, and then I changed mine.
I felt bad changing mine because that's the one Horror Nights gave to me personally, even though it was based on Bug House.
Maybe her favorite house. Stay tuned.
I mean, if we're going in terms of which houses scared us most, I can imagine that's probably Bella's number one. Number one of all time.
Yeah.
Best house ever.
I loved it more than I loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you know, you know. But our first little bit of fun tonight, we're gonna talk about Chucky and that little demon doll that's gonna be gracing our presence once again.
I am a Chucky apologist. I love Chucky. I love the movies. It's one of my Bella's laughing at me. It's one of the first horror movies I ever saw. Bella is like cracking up right now at me. I'm obsessed. I love Chucky. I love the TV show. I think it's phenomenal. I love the Scare Zone from 28. It's great. I just love that little a-hole. I think he's great. And I can't wait for the house. I've seen clips from Funhouse in Hollywood and I thought it looked fun.
Yeah, this inspired me to go on a whole Chucky marathon because Chucky's had an appearance the past couple of years, this year and last year. Last year, he just had the photo op in the middle of nowhere. This year, he had the photo op in the middle of food. And he had Rip Red Rocket. He had his own song that was only to promote his show. And his trailers have been all over the park. And his merch has been in the park. He was a studio screamer last year. So, hey, it's good that he's finally getting a house. You know, the same thing happened with Halloween, I feel like. We had the Blumhouse reboot from 2018 to this year, and not once did we get a Blumhouse thing. So I'm glad Chucky is not stringing it out, and it's finally coming. And I'm enjoying the film so far, and I cannot wait to get to the show.
The show is great. Also, didn't he have that disgusting burger sandwich thing, like the donut? Oh, that looked so gross. I did not try that.
It looked terrifying. Like, absolutely terrifying. Like, that... Okay. I hate Chucky.
Bughouse.
You're right. I hate Chucky for no reason. I've never watched any of Chucky's movies or his shows. I really don't know who this man is, but I hate him. I know I hate him. They're laughing at me. But okay, so picture this. I'm at Horror Nights, right? The night before they announced Chucky. So the second to last night. I'm walking through with my friend. We look to the Chucky Scare Zone. I go, I hate that doll. I wish I could punt him as far as I could. Fast forward to the next day. I'm getting ready for Horror Nights to go. I get a notification on my phone. I'm like, it's from Horror Nights. Let me look. And it's a video of Chucky. And you know how it goes. So, I don't know if I'm excited or I'm scared. Obviously, most people are excited about it. So I'm excited that they're excited. Like, I'm excited for Kelley because she's Chucky apologist. But I don't know. He scares me. Maybe if I watch the movies and the show, I'd feel better about it. But he really scares me.
You would like the show.
He's an icon. So.
I love him.
He believes in gay rights and trans rights, all the rights.
Really?
Yes.
In a way, you know, he's a monster well, he's not a monster. That's what he says. He is he kills to affirm.
Slay.
Is that accurate, Kelley? I'm only on Child's Play 3.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he is saying something to a character in the show. I don't want to give too many spoilers or anything, but he's talking about how he has I guess this might be a spoiler for the movies, but, you know, there's a movie called Seed of Chucky. So, you know, he has a child. And he has a gender fluid child. And he's like, I'm not a monster, Jake.
Hold on.
Which is funny.
A doll.
You got
A
it.
little plastic doll.
Yeah, you gotta watch the movies.
That wears a striped sweater. Has a child. Has an offspring. Stop. That little doll. That little ginger knife wielding doll.
It's a serial killer. It's a serial killer possessing a doll.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
I thought that was just the doll.
No.
Okay, so maybe I will have to watch it. Doesn't he have a wife? Bride of Chucky? Okay.
Tiffany.
That came up on my For You page the other day, and I was really confused at what I was watching, not gonna lie. But we'll see. Interesting. I'll watch it.
Yeah, this is definitely it's probably the most homework I've ever had to do for Halloween Horror Nights. I mean, I guess if I went full speed on Universal Monsters, I probably wouldn't have been a lot. But yeah, Chucky's got so many movies. He's got the two seasons of television right now. He's been at the event for years over both coasts. This is actually his first house since 2009 in Orlando. That was the Usher year, by the way.
My favorite.
Oh, he's so good. I
love him. Best boy.
But yeah, in Orlando is Chucky Friends Till the End. In Hollywood, it was his fun house that took over the House of Horrors. But he's had Scarezones and Terror Trams for a while now. And we've never had an announcement this early. So they must be planning something big, or they just don't want to keep people talking about on Twitter. Why is Chucky always showing up at this event? Well, now you know. It's now you know. Yeah, so if you're on YouTube, let us know in the comments what you're thinking about the Chucky announcement based on the TV show. I think we should get into the rest of Halloween Horror Nights 31, now that we've talked about 32.
Let's do it, bro. Let's do it.
I thought 31 was very fun. I liked it.
I really enjoyed it too. I think when I think just like to the general effect, part of me likes 30 a little bit more, because I mean, gosh, you had Jack, you had all the icons, you had my favorite house of all time, and you had so many strong story-led houses and all that. But then I think about it, I'm like, the Scarezones were kind of lacking last year a little bit. Granted, I think most of that was due to the COVID restrictions. But this year, I thought the Scarezones came to play. I thought the houses came to play. I thought the Pumpkin Lord came to fart, but he played too. No, it was just a fun year. I really enjoyed this year.
28 is going to be hard to beat for me, but I also lived in Orlando at the time, so it was like I went a lot more than I'm able to go. Like I know I talked in a previous episode that I was only able to go once this year with Express. That will not be the case next year. I'm planning to do at least Rush of Fear, but maybe Frequent Fear. But I was only able to go once, so being able to go more has something to do with it as well. But I did really love HHN 30, and I had Frequent Fear last year as well. So again, I got to go more. But yeah, I loved 30 even with the restrictions. I still thought that the houses were so solid, but they did a really good job with the Scarezones this year, bringing them back at full capacity again. So, or at least I think it was full. But yeah, it was, those crowds seemed like full capacity to me.
Don't get me started. I loved this year. Not as much as I loved last year, but I don't have anything to compare it to, because last year was my first year, so this year was my first normal year of Horror Nights. And I think I said it in the first Horror Nights episode we did. I wasn't expecting how close everything was gonna be, and I think I liked that a lot more. But I've seen other people talk about this, and I always feel bad saying it, because there's so much work that goes into these events. And it doesn't go unnoticed. Any single person that has worked on this event is amazing, but I feel like this year was off, and I don't know why. Someone, I wish I remembered who said it, was last year was a celebration of horror, but this year was more of was that you, Adam?
I think so, yeah.
Then it was Adam.
A celebration of Halloween.
Yeah, this year felt more like Halloween, a celebration of Halloween. So maybe that's why. I don't know. I thought the Scarezones were really cool though. They were just really busy, so it was you couldn't really walk through them. You kind of just got you had to the crowd moved you through them. But I thought it was fun. I had a very good time this year. I loved it. But it wasn't last year for me. I loved last year.
Yeah. I wonder what it is that made this year feel off, because you're not the only one who felt that way, Bella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me, 31 grows stronger in retrospect, because I know that first week or that second week, basically September. So I guess it'd be the first month. There was definitely like that feeling where it's like, okay, something's not clicking. And the first thing everyone went to was the park loop, because it didn't feel spooky. It felt kind of rocky. Like, I don't know what the proper genre is. And I definitely felt that. I'm like, this doesn't feel like horror, and this doesn't feel like the Pumpkin Lord from last year. I wonder what that is. But I grew to really love the park loop. I listen to it when I feel, like I need to pick me up. I turn on the park loop. So it's definitely grown on me. So I don't think I would apply it to that. But Bella, what do you think?
Another way out. That's the only song I heard the entire event. That's the only song I heard. Going in the house, it'd be that one. Coming out of the house, it'd be that one. Like, it followed me. It followed me.
It followed me into my heart.
Yeah, and I think you're the only person that thinks that, and that's okay. Because the amount of tweets I saw bashing the park loop, I was like, okay. But, like, I also don't remember what it was last year. So, last year, I remember it feeling more like, yeah. If that makes sense. If was like a, you know what I mean? Kelley, what are you going to say?
I also feel like last year was like, they were kind of bringing back, even though it was a restricted event, they were bringing back the event, and they hadn't really, I don't know. I feel like there was so much excitement and love for the event coming through, and like people who were just so excited and missed it so much. Like, I feel like part of why I loved it so much was I was like, oh my gosh, it's back. Like, we get it back. We get to do this again. So I wonder if that has something to do with why I really liked last year versus this year. But I did really like this year. I really liked this year. And my top 2 houses for sure are some of my favorite houses of all time. So, and I've been going for a while. So, like, I think it was a really solid event still. It just didn't have, you know what I think it was? There were no icons either. And I feel like having the icons back after so long was really cool. And then they weren't there anymore. And I was like, oh, I don't feel like, what's the cohesive theme here? I mean, Halloween, but I don't know.
Like, there was the Pumpkin Lord, which is like, I guess he's like kind of an icon now, but he said 3 things and then burped and farted. So like, there really, there really wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like, there really wasn't that, like, it felt like a disconnect, but I loved having him there. Some of the most fun I had was like what Adam and I did one night, just standing in front of the Pumpkin Lord for like 20, 30 minutes. Yeah. And just watching him because he's so funny. But like, I agree with what you said about how like there really wasn't an icon. And like, I loved the icons last year. The icons house was my favorite. I don't know.
Yeah, I do think it might have to do with the icon and the integration of the icon. It's because even with that first Scare Zone, Horrors of Halloween, which was the Pumpkin Lord Scare Zone, the way they pitched it on the Discover Universal podcast, which was something new this year, is they gave a lot of backstories and a lot more story information on that medium than they've ever done before in any medium. And they explained that Horrors of Halloween was supposed to be the thesis statement, quote unquote, of this year. So you did see different things featured from every Scare Zone. Like, you had the kitty cat from Sweet Revenge, you had the giant scarecrows from Scarecrow, you had the demons from Conjure the Dark, Graveyard. I think you had some ghosts in there too represented. And it just kind of felt like the Pumpkin Lord was intruding on that. And I think they did that well. That definitely came across. But I didn't feel like he intruded throughout the entire event. In the way something like The Wicked Growth, like the way that house was titled, you'd think that would apply this year. And it really felt like the Pumpkin Lord was hanging out. I do think as I did the event more and I sat in some Scare Zones more, especially Conjure the Dark, I started to see some more connective tissue. Like, my headcanon, I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like Conjure the Dark is like the very heavy prequel to the Pumpkin Lord, like his origin story before he even came out. And I think that's kind of the connective tissue, but again, it did not feel throughout the entire event as much as the theme of Halloween did and what Ghoulish represented. And I feel like Ghoulish might have been the connector piece of the entire event, and that was only around for the first 19 days of September, not even the first 19 days of the event, because of Hurricane Ian.
I have to agree with you on the thing about Conjure the Dark, because I saw something on Twitter, again, I can't remember who said it, that the sorceress in Conjure the Dark has, like, her voice, like, morphed into, like, the witch's voice from Wicked Growth, which only, like, for like continues that. And I also felt like I heard it in Coven, So maybe I'm crazy, or maybe they just have like one witch voice, or maybe it is connected. You never know. You never know.
I did like the lights around where it looked like the vines from the Pumpkin Lord that were pretty much in all the areas. But I do feel like they could have done more integration of him, like maybe, I don't know, like speaking in more areas, like over loudspeakers or something. And I just feel like there could have definitely been more Pumpkin Lord and kind of made him more of an icon, because I think that was something we talked about last year that we wanted and that it would be really cool. But I feel like they did a good job, but I feel like they could have done more to make it like a great job of him being an icon. But I really liked all the merch this year with the Halloween theme. Like, that was really, I love the shirts. Yes, like Adam's shirt right now.
It's the one that says every day is Halloween at Universal Studios. Got it for $8, and I love it.
I bought so much merch that was 70% off. I think, in recap, I got the black foam shirt, the one that says Never Go Alone with Michael Jennifer on it, because that was the only piece of Halloween merch I could find. I got the Scares Around Every Corner shirt. I got the I'm the Treat shirt because it's funny. And I got the house shirt. And they were each like $8. And then I also got the Michael Jennifer cup. The merch this year was fantastic. It was so good.
It was. That was like one of my favorite things about the event. Like, I got the house shirt and I am obsessed with that shirt. It's so good.
I feel like I went all out on merch. What did I get? I got the shirt. I got a Wolfman coaster. I got one of the vinyls. I forget who I got. Oh, I got a Wolfman. Funny how that works out. I got the Wolfman vinyl from Scream Streamers or something, or whatever it's called. I got the vinyl, like the actual vinyl, the Legendary Truth vinyl. Still need to listen to that. Yeah, no, the merch is really good. And as far as the shirts went, I thought they were all pretty great. Some more than others, but they're all pretty strong. I just couldn't decide which one I wanted to get, and so I only got one. It's like, oh, you're all so good, but I'll go with this one. And maybe that's why it all went 70% off, like on Halloween. It's like, dude, no one can make up their mind. We're going to make their minds up for them now. I don't know.
I got the house shirt and then I got the spirit jersey because I was like, just gonna get one shirt. And then I saw the spirit jersey and I was like, I'm getting it. So I got that. And then I got some pins with the cat and all the symbols of Halloween on it.
I also got that.
Yes.
Forgot.
I'm obsessed. And I almost got the bucket hat. I didn't end up getting it because I have a Lil Boo bucket hat that I got from a small shop last year. I can't remember what shop it was, but I will check. And that's really cute. But yeah, so I only got a couple things this year, but I'm obsessed with everything I got, especially that spirit jersey. It's so cute.
They had like a couple of the weekend shirts left and the snack shirt, the Blinky Cup shirt, but like they were all either extra small or like medium. And I was like, okay. Like they didn't even have any on City Walk. I think most of the shirts I got were like, they only had like 4Xs, so they're all dresses on me, which is fine. But yeah, the merch was so good. It was so good. Like, I felt bad. Like, I wanted to buy everything. I was like, no, I can't do that. Also, I'm mad I didn't get the cup holder, the freestyle cup holder.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I got that too. Not the,
I got
the cup. I got my first freestyle cup and it was Monsters.
Slay.
Aww.
I should put a list of all the merch that I got because I'm just remembering, oh yeah, I got that thing. Most of which I do use.
I love the Icons reusable cup from last year. I have that one.
I have that one too.
It's so good. So good. Oh, Dead Coconut Club this year. So fun. I loved it.
It was so good. So good.
As a Monsters fan, my heart was pleased when I went at the right time. I wish they didn't play actual club music. I wish there wasn't an actual club, like Clubby Club, and half the night, or closed most of the event, as what happened with these private events. I know it's great. I love that people loved it enough to buy it out. But for us plebes, I wish that it was open more. But dude, when it was like the actual Dead Coconut Club, like original programming, they got the American Sirens to pop up as the Sirens for Dead Coconut Club Entertainment, and they were fantastic. It had such a great vibe. The mocktail was fun. I thought it was pretty good. and just the overall vibe, just like seeing the classic monsters in a club, like it was everything I could want, and not just like a club, but like a space just dedicated to them. I didn't take pictures with any of them because I went before that happened. I never went back. Timing and all that jazz. And I'm like, I'm late for the houses. I need to get to the houses, or I'm at the houses. I'm on a roll. So that's why I wish that went into like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And you don't even have to have the siren dancer singers. You don't have to have the entertainers. Just the vibe is great. Just maybe bump up the vibe music and not turn down for what? Do.
Oh my God. When I went, we got there like the last little bit of the sirens. And I was walking around, we met Dracula. He was like, "Are you a witch?" And I was like, "No, but if you say I am, I guess I'm one." And like we were talking for a little bit, and he was so nice. He was so cool. And then I got the mocktail as well, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it was cute. Maybe not worth $9, but it was cute. And then we went upstairs, and that's when like the club music started playing. And what was the first? It was like some random Katy Perry song started. And I was like, this is giving like Florida State Thespian, like state festival dance or like homecoming. That's so specific, and 90% of people are not going to know what that is. But Adam does. Do you know what that is, Kelley?
We do. Yes.
You know what?
Actually, I never went to those. I never went to those.
I went once, and my director tackled a kid in the bathroom. And then the dance got canceled.
Oh boy.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
I went, and it was not fun.
It's scary. But at Dead Coconut Club, I wore my Bride of Frankenstein shirt because I knew she was gonna be there. And like we got to meet them outside on the balcony, which was like really fun and cute. And I wore my shirt, and she was like, "Oh my God." Obviously, she doesn't talk, but she was like, "Oh my God." And then Frankenstein was like pointing at it, and he was like, "Hello." If he could talk, he would be saying that. Like, I just know we're besties. I know him like that. He's also very tall, and I'm scared. And I was like, "You're such like a girl boss, like queen, like slay." And she was like, "Oh my God." I had to add a noise so the listeners will know. You know, they're not. You guys can see me. They can't.
It's true.
But she was like gonna like. Oh, she was so nice. And I took pictures of them, and they were all blurry, so they will never see the light of day because it was really dark. I'll send them to you guys though. But it's fun. I loved it. I'm excited for the Christmas one that they're doing.
Earl the Squirrel.
I'm gonna scream.
I didn't even know. Wait, they're doing a Christmas one? I didn't know.
Yes.
The Green and Red Coconut Club.
Oh.
Hosted by Earl the Squirrel.
Did anyone do the Death Eaters thing?
I always meant to, but I was at Horror Nights, and I'm like, I don't really want to go to the other part.
Yep.
There's one time I left Horror Nights before 9 or before 10, before Islands closed. But Islands was so close to closing. I'm like, by the time I get back there, they're not even going to be there. All the rides would be closed. I would have come in here for nothing. I did it my first year of Horror Nights, so 29. So I know what it's like. I think I saw the Dark Arts show. And I like that they have the spooky atmosphere over at Islands. Because, I mean, we used to have... For a little bit, there's Horror Nights over at Islands, either in part or completely. And so it's good to have the Halloween energy over there. Same with All Hallows Eve Boutique. Love it. I didn't do it this year, but I like that it exists. That's my thoughts on that.
Same.
Yeah, I thought it was cute from like pictures, but I never even thought to go over there. Because like you said, like it's like you're at Horror Nights, but like you can't take the train, which would be the most convenient. So like it's kind of like a trek then to like get out of the park, walk all the way around, scan into the other park, walk around, then walk all the way back, go around, you know.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. It's definitely a good thing, I think, for smaller ones or scaredy cats or HHN first timers, and they kind of want a taste of what the atmosphere is like. Obviously, they're not going to like the wands are no chainsaws. This is true. But it kind of gives you an idea of what a spooky scare zone would be like walking through Hogsmeade. It's tight enough in there that it feels the same. And then you can go to Kong and kind of walk through an actorless house, because I think Kong is probably more intense than many houses in HHN. Just that cube, my lord. There's no actor in there, but I still feel very uncomfortable.
I wish there was.
You guys saw me in the Kong queue. I hated it.
I wish there was still an actor in there because that scared the heck out of me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a few times.
I don't think my husband would do very well there. He got scared in that line just with no actor. It's creepy. Like the atmosphere, the sounds like are just so spooky. It's very well done.
Your guard is so off in there.
Yes.
Because you're like, I'm going to go on a ride that's pretty mild. And then you go through a queue that is very wild. To borrow some phraseology from SeaWorld. Oh, food. Who ate food?
I did.
I did too, Bella.
I don't think I ate any food. I think we talked about this. I don't think I ate any food.
The pizza skull? Who had the pizza skull?
I had the pizza skull. I did not like the pizza skull. It made me sad. I had a lot of hot takes about the food this year. I can go with sadness before going into your gladness.
Yeah, do your sad first. I mean, I only had the pizza skull and a twisted tater, but do your sad first.
Okay. So the first thing I had was the spicy turkey bun. I thought that was good, just small, but it was good. It was good. I would have gotten it again, but it was small and expensive for the size, but it was good. Okay. Now that I've established that, but then I'm like, you know what? There's so much food this year. I'm going so often. I want to kind of sample a lot of things. So I got the pepperoni pizza skull, and I'm like, it doesn't feel right. I wish I got something from Louis instead. And the one time I did go to Louis, I got the Reuben fries. I was so excited. I love a Reuben. I love pizza fries. Together, I think it was just under the lamp too long, so I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. I probably should give the benefit of the doubt to the pizza skulls too. It could have just been a bad night, because I know everybody and their mother loved it, except for me and my mother. So it was just true, not a joke. But yeah, I had the Reuben fries, didn't love them. They just felt like they're under the lamp too long. But what I find, and I was about to give up on Horror Nights food forever until a savior came, and his name was Meaty Meats. I loved that gosh dang Meaty Meats stand. Everything there was just aces. The fried zombie brains, which was fried cauliflower in a spicy sauce. I don't want to mispronounce it, but I think it's spicy gouyang sauce. If not, I am so sorry to people who know how food is pronounced, but it was perfect. It was the right amount of spice. It was the right amount of flavor, so much goodness. And then on my last Horror Nights night, I said to myself, I had a burger at Richter's. That was a mistake. So I'm going to go over to Meaty Meats and rectify this, but I kind of want some meat instead of just the cauliflower, which didn't taste like cauliflower. It tasted like beautiful things. So I went over to Meaty Meats, got the fried chicken offals, and those were also good. They also had peanuts. I could have done without the peanuts, but it kind of went all together. I'm like, oh, this is a very good dish. And that saved Horror Nights food for me entirely. I loved it. I wish I loved the other food more, but I love that food.
You are the first person I've seen talk about the Meaty Meats thing. I forgot it. Well, I have a personal vendetta against that Meaty Meats thing, because I went to Universal like last week to take headshots for someone, and it was still up in my favorite headshot location. So I'm mad at it.
Oh yeah.
I'm mad about it. But I totally forgot that was there, and that sounds kind of good.
I want to learn how to make the fried zombie brains at home, because
I'm sure
they're
you
that
can.
good. Oh no, I know I can,
good.
but I just need to figure out how to make them.
Yeah, I'll support you in it. You have to do it for the pod.
And our bonus segment,
And Adam is gonna make his own Food Network show. What did I have? I had, well, obviously Twisted Tater. Love it. Mine were a couple I had some wimpy ones during the season.
oh no,
Or ones that had because I get the seasoned salt ones with way too much seasoned salt ones that my whole face was tingly and it was really bad. But the last night, I was having not a good time at Horror Nights. I went and got a Twisted Tater, and it was the most beautiful, perfectly formed, perfectly seasoned Twisted Tater. And it was amazing, and I loved it. So that made up for it. What else did I have?
I love that the Pumpkin Lord provided for you.
He did.
He saw
really
you in your
did.
weakest hours and said, "No, I will bless my minion Bella."
Exactly. Oh, it was so good. I also had the corn dog, the maggot dog. I
so wanted that.
I
That
loved
looked
that
amazing.
thing. I wish I went back there for more. I only had it opening weekend. I had it twice opening weekend. It was so good. I thought it was just like a Korean cheese dog, so it was just gonna be cheese. I didn't know there was chopped up pieces of corn dog in it. That scared me at first, not gonna lie. It terrified me. But we didn't get the sweet one. The sweet one did not sound good. Sorry to the fans of the sweet one. But it was like the puffed like Rice Krispies, but like normal rice or puffed rice. That would be it. Yeah. And sesame seeds, and it's that same sauce that was in the zombie brains or the chicken. And I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just not gonna. It was orange and it was good. And it was spicy. Oh my gosh. Life-changing. It's so good. Anything that's like named after bugs just sounds terrifying, and I don't think it should exist. Except that. That was amazing. I loved it. It was worth the line. There was always a long line. I also had pizza fries from Louis at exactly 2 a.m.
Whoa.
And they were great. They were great.
Love pizza fries. Love pizza fries.
We, in this household, we love pizza fries. Because it was the night I did Monsters, and we were at Kid Zone. We went into the house, it was open. Came out of the house, it was closed. I was like, okay, we're going to run down to Louis. We're running. And I got them. And it was great. But my favorite thing I had, the pizza skull. It was so good. I had a fresh one. So that's why mine.
That's probably what made the difference.
It was so good. And it was sitting in a bed of, that theme park marinara sauce, that good. I mean, it's not good, but like it is, Don't look at me like that, Adam.
I thought I was giving you a face of nodding and affirmation. That's what I was going for.
No, you look disgusted.
That was not the intent. That's just my face.
The true feelings were showing through.
Yeah, they were.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't buy it. Oh my God. But like the skull, it was like perfect. It like looked beautiful and it was warm, but like also doughy, but like good. Oh, I wish I got more than one. Like I wish I had like 7. They were so good. But that's really all I had. Began to say it.
So before we go into the rankings, does anyone have any final thoughts about this event before we go into our rankings, good or bad?
Okay, party people. I have a negative, a very big negative. This event was so busy. I have never experienced anything like that. The first opening weekend, it was busy, but it was expected. And I was like, I don't think it can get worse than this. And then it did. And it continued to get worse. And that's not Horror Nights' fault. That's not them. Like, granted, one of the shows went down. So they have 2 shows. They have Nightmare Fuel and they have Ghoulish. Ghoulish went down. So that would take away from a big, like, attractor. So I think they need at least 3 or 4 shows next year to try and pull. Because, I mean, we saw Halloween was at like 130-minute wait every single night.
Yeah.
Which is, I have never, granted, I only went last year, but I've never seen a house wait that long since when they did Stranger Things. And I've seen pictures of like 280, like ridiculous numbers, which, okay, not gonna lie, I would be in that standby line for Stranger Things. I would be there. I don't care. But it's crazy because every line was like that. There's barely anything under 70 most nights. Yeah. And it's crazy. And you couldn't walk in the streets. You couldn't do anything. So either they put like a lower capacity on it, maybe, or not selling as many tickets. Because I thought I read somewhere that they oversold. I don't know how theme parks do that, but I don't know. Or like make more shows or do something. Because I feel like it was just like a major drawback to the event. Also, putting an age restriction on the guests. I'm sorry. Some of the teenagers this year were wild, crazy. I got scared by guests. Like they would get in my face, in my friend's face. Like, no. So anyway, next year, Horror Nights 21 and up on select nights. Maybe keep it 18 and up. Also, I got carded at City Walk.
Nice. Congratulations.
No, not in that way.
Oh, no, sorry.
Because you can't be over 18. You can't be under 18 on City Walk after 9.
Oh, that's right. I forgot they still had that. Yeah.
And like, I'm walking up to City Walk in shorts, fishnets, a sheer black top, and a denim jacket with black lipstick. My friends dressed the same. And I was like, do we look 18? So I don't know. I just feel like there were so many like little things, but especially the crowd levels.
Yeah, I had Express and I still felt like I was waiting a really long time in the Express line. And obviously, Express is not any cheaper than it was when it was faster. So it's just frustrating because it's expensive, which I understand because they want to make sure not too many people are buying it. But then there's still too many people buying it. It's just definitely frustrating. I've been going to the event since I was 12, but I've always been very respectful. And I know, like, my experience, I didn't have a ton of crazy teenagers. I didn't have like really any bad experiences that I can think of from this year. But I was only there for one day. And I know that there are rowdy teenagers and rowdy drunk adults as well, but it's like hard to pick a solution for that, you know? So it's just, I just wish people would be more respectful. And I feel like that's the solution, but that's not going to happen probably. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's frustrating.
It's tough because just being a scary event should give like that tacit age restriction. I mean, they suggest no under 13 go to this event. A lot of the houses are rated R. Like Hellblock this year and Chupacabras are some of the goriest things I've seen, you know, like at a theme park. Love them, but still, you know. And I don't know, but here's the thing, like kids, like actual kids were at this event, at least around me, they were doing great. They were having fun. Maybe they had to rest on dad's shoulder every now and again because it's a long night and the pavement does not get any easier to stand on. But, you know, they were into it because their parents knew they could handle it. And, you know, teenage years, that was like pivotal for Kelley. Wasn't for me because I was still a scaredy cat. So I totally see why. And most of my bad experiences have been from adults. But I had what you experienced, Bella, where there were some terrible guests trying to either scare me or scare a character, neither of which a guest should do. Even they're like, or I saw a TikTok from someone I know where like her sister like went to fake punch a character, a cut before, you know, you saw what happened next. It was like a hard cut. So maybe you shouldn't get anywhere close to it, but I don't know that. And that's just like not good behavior, but it happens with teens. It happens with adults. It's really hard to figure out which one to do. So like, I don't disagree with you, Bella, because guests were rough. And I think there should be more shows. They've done more shows in the past. They've been sticking to 2 in Fear Factor and in the Lagoon, but Fear Factor's been on the chopping block. We need someplace to put a stage show. Is it Men in Black? Is it one of the sound stages they're not using? Is it animal actors? Is it horror makeup or Born? Like, there's places they can do it. It's just, are they going to do it? And even with this being the biggest event this year, just across the resort, this felt like the biggest event as far as the things they were offering. But everyone's just hanging out in HHN at USF, as opposed to spending all the time at Dead Coconut or being in every showing of Nightmare Fuel or trying really hard for those NFTs or the tribute stores, things like that. But yeah, I agree with both of you. It's not an easy solution. I don't know what the solution is, but something needs to happen with the crowds, I think. I don't want the price to go up, but maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's an age restriction. That doesn't involve me, so who knows? I don't know.
Going back to guest behavior, like you were talking about, the last couple days, maybe you guys have seen the video, but the video from Horror Nights Hollywood, where this poor scare actor is going up to someone and they get absolutely run over. Like, why? Like, I've noticed people talking about it, like, as well, like, it's happening at Disney too. Like, ever since COVID, guest behavior has been so, like, entitled. And I definitely saw that this year at Horror Nights, and especially with that video. So I hope they come up with a solution to fix this behavior problem. Because like you said, it's also adults and it's kids and it's teenagers. Like, they're, if people keep acting like this, they're either one, going to get banned from the event, or 2, the event's going to change and it won't be the same. So it's just, I don't know. People, Oh, that video made me mad though.
Me too. I saw that.
Yeah, that stunk. We'll see what they do, because I think the crowds this year, Universal has to address that. And guest behavior is something Universal should address, but I don't know how they address it. And security is usually pretty on top of like people fear Universal security for good and bad reasons, but there's only so much they can do. There's only so much that Street Ops can do. This year, actually, to give Universal credit on this, because it's not like they've been sitting on their hands, not doing anything. They did put cameras in the houses this year. And I think, I'm not on the other end. I don't know, but I feel like I saw less reports on Twitter from scare actors saying, gosh, man, I just got spit at or hit by a scare. Most of it was they're trying to scare me in my boo hole, which you're not going to. That sucks. But I feel like people saw the cameras, they knew they were going to be watched. If they didn't know that, then there's someone watching the camera on the other end too, knowing, oh, that's our perp, and taking care of it. So kudos to Universal on that, and trying to make the event how it was in the past 29 years without having to do, or the first 29 years with not having the plexi and still having that intimate fun. Well, maybe not intimate fun, that didn't sound right, but that close quarters, scary fun time. Yeah.
Did you guys do the shows, by the way?
Yeah, I did both of them. I did Ghoulish, and I did Halloween Nightmare Fuel Wildfire. I only did both of them once. One because Ghoulish went away pretty soon, and Nightmare Fuel Wildfire, I didn't love it as much as last year, but I thought that they're still both solid shows. I hope that Universal, for Nightmare Fuel, if they do it again, they do a show in the spirit of it, or that's just as revolutionary, not revolutionary, but just as fresh as that first one was, as opposed to going back and doing another Nightmare Fuel. Like, do something like Nightmare Fuel, but we don't need to see Nightmare Fuel again, I don't think. And Ghoulish, I didn't love the first time I watched it, but I've been watching it back a lot on repeat. One, because of our cold open, but two, because it's just, the music's really good, and I've been trying to figure out what the storyline is on it. I wish it was clearer at first, but it's definitely really good. I think it really captured that Halloween spirit, as I said in our first impressions video, or episode rather. I hope Universal either brings that one, I could see them bringing back, just because it had no chance this year. It had no chance to grow in terms of fan popularity or organically. Of course, the theme is going to be totally different next year, so who knows? But I hope they do things that they're passionate about, because there's so much passion in Ghoulish and in Nightmare Fuel, but especially like Ghoulish, I felt there's so much passion in that project that I don't think we would have had if we had a third Marathon of Mayhem. Shows are great. They're not something you think about with horror nights, especially if you're only going one night. Like Kelley, I don't think you saw any of the shows because it was your one night.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Although I love that music from Ghoulish, and I love that it's original music. That's fantastic. I saw a video of Nightmare Fuel. I've seen part of Ghoulish, but I need to watch the whole thing probably after we finish recording tonight. But same thing. I thought it was great, but last year was just so, I don't know, with it being so new, I thought it was so cool last year. So definitely like the idea of a different kind of show, but with the same vibe, I guess. And I also love the idea of, they have that Blue Man Theater, which I thought was where they were going to do shows. So I was like, I don't know, add another show in for more crowd eating, I guess. I think Bella mentioned like more shows would be a good way to bring crowds down. I think that's definitely a great way to do that. I still think they need to add a comedy show again, but that's just my opinion. Like, Howl-O-Scream had like 3 shows this year, 3 or 4. They had a ton at 4 at Howl-O-Scream Tampa, and then Orlando had a bunch of shows as well. So I think they need to do something kind of like that. I know they have spaces for it that they're not utilizing.
Yeah, I agree about maybe using Blue Man Group. That's what they did Grinchmas last year. So I don't know if they like keep like Whoville up in there, or like how early they put it up. So that would be like the only thing that I can think of that's preventing them from Blue Man Group. It's also kind of weird to get into from the park. Like, it's kind of a walk, but like we all walked longer for Bug House, so
that's true. But I think there was also the Stay and Scream area for Hellblock, if I'm like towards that area. And it was the resort entrance this year, so it's definitely not. And then when the park opened, it was part of the park. Like, the park extended all the way back to Blue Man, back when it was Nickelodeon Studios. So I could see them.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely do it in the future, and hopefully next year we see that. But I saw Nightmare Fuel, and I loved Nightmare Fuel. I'm a Nightmare Fuel stan. I definitely wish it was more different than last year, because I feel like for this year, it was just like the really iconic parts of last year, and then like new stuff. But I loved all the new stuff, and I loved the iconic stuff from last year. I loved the new music choices this year, especially Sign of the Times at the end. It's Harry Styles' song, if no one else knows that. It's Harry's debut single. Everyone should go listen if you haven't heard it. But the cover of it is so good. And I'm not just saying that as like a Harry stan, but it's like it works. It worked really well in the show, and it also scared me so bad because I wasn't expecting it. I think we might have mentioned this before in our other Horror Nights episode this year. I don't know. But it's a little jump scare for me, and I loved it. But
Bella mentioning Harry Styles? That's crazy. She doesn't ever do that.
No, this is really out of character for you, Bella.
Yeah, I didn't even know you liked him. That's crazy.
I didn't need who is that man? I don't know.
Who is this man?
But I thought it was fun. I hope they maybe not bring back the show as Nightmare Fuel, but like as a different show, same vibe. Like you said, Kelley.
Well, with that out of the way, we're getting into the rankings part of the program. But before we get into the houses, I don't want to keep on, saying, oh, we're going to get to the houses, we're going to get to the houses. But there's something really big that happened this year, which was Scarezones. I mean, it happens every year. Scarezones. You can't forget the Scarezones. We had 5 Scarezones. The Horrors of Halloween, Sweet Revenge over in New York, Conjure the Dark over in San Francisco, Scarecrow Cursed Soil. Sorry, I had to give it its subtitle. Not to be confused with The Reaping. But yes, Cursed Soil was over in Central Park, and Graveyard Deadly Unrest was over in Hollywood this year. And I mean, we all have opinions. And those opinions usually turn out to be rankings. My number 5 this year, and by the way, I just want to say this before getting to the rankings. I know there's some discussion about rankings and they lack a lot of nuance, and like totally understand, and I completely understand that. But I think it also gives an idea of like kind of what we prefer and stuff. But do know that like number 5 does not mean it was bad. That's true for, at least for me, with the houses. It's true with the Scarezones. My number 5 actually hung out there quite a bit. I thought it was such a fun energy, and I thought it was such a fun introduction to the event. And that was the Horrors of Halloween, featuring the Pumpkin Lord of Camp. Thought it was cool how it integrated a lot of things from all the other Scarezones. I thought it was great how the Pumpkin Lord was up there in his little big pumpkin, and one of the cast did a really good job of interacting. So like one of the witches, I think that was original to that Scarezone, to the Horrors of Halloween Scarezone, like she did the fire for the Pumpkin Lord. I saw one of the scarecrows and one of the cats from Sweet Revenge like give each other a high five while they're in that Scarezone. Like the energy in that Scarezone was so great. The only reason it was in my number 5 is because the others left a more lasting impression while I was in there. But gosh, if Horrors of Halloween wasn't a great time. My number 4 is Graveyard Deadly Unrest, which was the Scarezone of the year. It was one that I think it proves one of the things about Scarezones, which is they're fun to walk through, but you really get rewarded for hanging out in there and really absorbing all of it. Because most of the time that I went through Graveyard Deadly Unrest, it was in passing, and it was really hard to pass it unless you're beelining it for the parade houses and the Kids Zone houses, or trying to take an alternative route to the tents or Blumhouse, because we didn't have Shrek. We didn't have the Shrek house this year, which is where Case Files was last year, and that is in basically the Hollywood area. Killer Clowns the previous year, and so on and so forth. So it was easier to ignore Graveyard because it's not really in your path at all. So it's either like the very last thing you do or the very first thing you do while you're trying to get to your first house or the exit. So it's really hard to spend a lot of time in there unless you make a conscious choice to. But it was so rewarding to spend time in there intentionally. And you got that great stage stuff with Brother Death and Brother Sleep. You really got to see how the characters portray their history as characters, and the vibe in there was great. It was foggy, it was creepy, and one night, because it's so ignored, I was walking through there, and I was probably like one of 8 people in there. So I was walking in just kind of like, oh yeah, that's super cool, I'm taking pictures and all that stuff, and then I realized 8 ghosts are staring at me, surrounding me, and they went to attack, and it was quite frightening. So like it was definitely a very strong scare zone, and I'm glad it was there. My number 3 was Sweet Revenge. The reason Sweet Revenge is my number 3 is because I really enjoyed the vibes quite a bit. I love the loop in there, the music loop in there. I know we're talking about the music loop for the event, but Dear One, the world is waiting for the sunrise. Loved it. Loved that song before the event. And the fact that it's in that zone, it could not be in my top 3. The storyline was well told, a lot of iconic stuff. I think the scares can kind of get repetitive in there for how big that zone was, which is why it's in the middle of my list. But yeah, incorporate the tribute store, for crying out loud. Like, it's the biggest scare zone I feel like they've done in a while, and it earned it. And I thought it was great. My number 2 was hard because it was my number 1 at one point. 2 and 1 were fighting for me. My number 2 was Scarecrow Cursed Soil. And if I had to come up with the reason why it was my number 2 and not my number 1 for how strong it was, it's because you couldn't hang out in there. You had to go because it got so crowded, which is what happens in Central Park, but that's what happens. So yeah, that's like my only complaint with it is I didn't get yelled at because I just kept on going, but I know some people try to take pictures in there and interact with the scare actors, and the officer are like, no, you're blocking everybody. You need to move. But the scarecrows were so good. They were so scary. I loved the barn. I loved everything about that scare zone, to be honest with you. But my number 1 has to go to a San Francisco zone, which surprises me. But that was Conjure the Dark. Every time I walked in there, I got so excited. I thought the triggers were well placed. I thought the mythology was so good in there. I thought that's one where you need to stick around and watch the stage shows because they're really entertaining, but they also tell the story really well. It's iconic. Everything is in motion in there. You have the virgin sacrifice walking around trying to escape her inevitable fate, being sacrificed to awaken, in my headcanon, the Pumpkin Lord, but maybe that's not true. Maybe it's not. And the reason I think that is because the main witch is trying to summon something with its growing evil or its growing vines. Who else has growing vines but the Pumpkin Lord? I thought it was really good. I thought it was really strong, and it had original music, which you got me there. Yeah, it was the first scare zone I loved this year, and in the end, it was my number 1.
I will also start by saying, like, I think a big thing that plays into my rankings is that I only got to go to this event for one night. So a lot of what we were doing was, even though we had Express, still running to the houses to make sure we get them done on time. So really, I didn't get to spend a ton of time in each of the scare zones. So most of my ranking is mostly based on atmosphere and then the brief interactions that I did in each of them. I only went through each scare zone about once, so maybe twice for some of them. So it's hard for me to rank them, but I will say I thought they were all super well done this year. I feel the same way about the houses, and honestly, my rankings are never, at least for this year, about the scare actors either, because they all crushed it this year. So this is based on aesthetics and everything from just walking through. My number 5 is what is it called? The Halloween one in the front. Adam, I'm sure you have the name pulled up.
The Horrors of Halloween.
Thank you.
No
the
problem.
the Horrors of Halloween zone. I loved it. I loved the Pumpkin Lord. I think he's hilarious, and I wish I could have stayed there with you guys and stood there for 30 minutes because I would have loved to interact with him more. But I liked that they pulled different inspiration from other areas. I just feel like most of the time, except for An Arcade from a couple years ago, I loved that zone, but most of the time that zone in particular, just from where it's placed, is kind of a catch-all zone and ends up not being as cohesive. So it was just lower for me, even though I did love all the characters and the interactions that I had there. Number 4 was Conjure the Dark, and I loved the music. My biggest problem was just when I happened to walk through, there was a show going on and the crowds were like so crazy, but we didn't have time to stay and watch it. And I wish I would have, because I saw videos and it looked fantastic. And the music's fantastic and the acting is so cool. So I think that probably if I got to spend more time there, it would have been in my top 3 and maybe 1 or 2, but it just didn't make the mark based on when I walked through there. But I liked the idea of the witches and everything. I just thought that was neat. Number 3 was Scarecrow, and I knew it was going to be in my top 3 because the Scarecrow the Reaping House is one of my favorite houses of all time. Definitely top 10, probably top 5, but maybe not top 5. I don't know. It's been a while. One of the probably the scariest house I've ever done, I think, still. But that zone was scary. It was fun. There were people yelling that it was corn, a big lump with knobs, because of the TikTok sound. So it was just kind of like a fun timing that they could not have planned on purpose any better. Obviously, it was not on purpose, but so that was cool. Number 2 was Graveyard. I loved that zone, and I knew I would love it from the second I stepped through there during the day and got to see the set pieces, when everything was getting set up. I thought it was cool. I loved the like the twins, like very The Shining vibes with that. They were phenomenal. All the whatever cast I saw, I don't know, but they're great. And I just thought that was a fun zone. I had a lot of cool interactions, and I love the set pieces for that one and the gothic vibe. And that scare zone is always like a top one for me because I don't know, I just always have great interactions there. Like the Chucky scare zone was fantastic there, the Vamp 55. But my favorite scare zone was obviously Sweet Revenge. I loved it. I love the costumes. I love the parade floats. I was like, this is so creative that they have parade floats. That's so cool. So I loved that. I loved the mayor and the fact that it's like cursed candy, and that's why there's all these mutant children, and just I thought the theming was fantastic. And that one was one of the ones where I felt like the theming was so obvious with it, even if you don't know a ton of the lore, although that adds so much if you know more of the background to it that Universal provides and does such a good job with. But yeah, I just thought Sweet Revenge was so cute and fun, and I wish I could have spent more time in there because those floats were beautiful. And I just loved it. I thought it was fun, and I got very scared in there a couple times by people that I was not expecting to jump out at me. So 10 out of 10. Loved that. But all the zones this year were really great, and I wish I got to spend more time with them.
Both of your rankings are so different, and I love it. Mine, I feel like my number 5 is going to start a fight. I have Scarecrow as my number 5. I loved Scarecrow. I loved it. I thought it was very cool. But like you said, Adam, it's very small, and you have to keep going, and it's not lit. It is very dark, and there's a lot of fog that gets trapped in there. So that would just, I couldn't really like go through it that much because, well, one, the chainsaws will be on the other side. So I didn't really go that way. And then it was just always like, it felt like it was too packed and there was too much going on. And it scared me like a lot. But I thought like the design of it was awesome. Like the barn was incredible. Like all of it was so cool. I loved the little corn. Like you said, Kelley, like the most perfectly timed thing. I loved it. I thought it was cute. The last scare as you're walking to Kid Zone, the one in the outhouse, would get me every time. Every time. The pig would get me too. But it was so good. I wish I got to experience the house. Probably would have traumatized me, but I know there are some diehard Scarecrow stans. So, like Kelley. My number 4 is Conjure the Dark. But for this kind of, not really for the same reasons, because I loved it. I loved it. I loved the music. I loved the sorceress. I loved the little minions. I loved the blue ones with the nose rings. Well, I was taking pictures in there, and one came up to my camera, sniffed it, and then gagged. Like, I loved it. I had so much fun in there. But I had the same problem with the Crypt TV Zone last year. It is a bottleneck. That's why I just don't think they should put shows in there. Like, put it in Hollywood or by the tribute store. Because it bottlenecks so bad, because that's, like, where Nightmare Fuel is. And, like, yeah, Diagon Alley doesn't really attract much, but, like, it's still right there, kind of. Not really. Like, there's a lot back in that direction. Like, that's where all the houses are. Like, kind of, you know. So it gets busy. People stop. It's also not that dark, but a lot of fog. A lot of fog. Like, you could not see. But, like, I loved the music. I loved that it was all original music. I thought it was fun. I loved it, even though it's my number 4. My number 3 is Horrors of Halloween. Most of the time, I was standing in front of the Pumpkin Lord, just watching him because I thought it was really fun. And then the last night, as I was leaving, bad night, terrible night, like I said earlier. And I'm like waving to the Pumpkin Lord. I'm like, bye. And he waves by, and I blow him a kiss. And he grabs it and he puts it to his heart and he blows me a kiss back. And I was like, that's all I needed. That's it. I loved it. I loved the like not overhang, but like the overhead thing with all the pumpkins in it. I thought it was fun to see all those again, even though they like hid little Boo up at the top. So like you can never see him. And like you said, Adam, I loved how all the scare zones like intertwined and like worked with each other. I thought it was fun. I got scared in there a couple of times, not gonna lie. But like the little pumpkin people, they'd get me. My number 2 is Graveyard, Deadly Unrest. I loved that zone. I thought it was so pretty, especially at night with all like the black light and like it was so like ghostly and like creepy and very somber. It had like a very somber like feeling. There was a house that is it's in all of our rankings, but that had the same that had the same like somber tone to it. I loved the twins. I feel like everybody says that, like no matter like who it is, everyone mentions the twins. I thought that was genius. Even though they had 2 ghillie suit people, that scared me every time. I loved it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was really good use of the zone. I'm glad there weren't chainsaws in it this year, so I could walk through it. Well, yeah, so I didn't have to run through it like I did last year. But my number 1, like you, Kelley, is Sweet Revenge. I thought it was so fun. And like you said, Adam, the music, like Elvis and like La Vie en Rose and like there was just so many bops. But my one takeaway is they had the same like screaming sound effects and they would be so loud. I don't remember what Scarezone had them last year. It was probably the Seek and Destroy one.
It could have been Seek and Destroy, but it might have also been Eddie's.
It was Eddie's. I remember it now. It was definitely Eddie's. And they were so loud. But I thought it was fun. I thought all the storylines were fun. I loved the grandpa character. Loved grandpa. I saw a video of like, it was like 9 different not 9, maybe like 6 different scare actors all in a row pretending to beat up grandpa. And they'd like keep going in a circle. And I thought it was the funniest. I loved it. Also, there was one guy on stilts and he had a pumpkin on his head. He would be running through that thing. Oh my God. It was so fun. I thought it was just like a big grandpa. We do. We stand grandpa. I just thought it was a big party. Like that's exactly like what it was said to be. It was a festival. I don't know. I thought it was really fun. It was really clever. I got some good scares in there. I also liked being able to walk through that area again this year because there weren't chainsaws in it. That was great. I really appreciate that. Can I mention the chainsaws?
Yeah, go for it.
Chainsaws. I think that is the worst thing ever to happen to Horror Nights, and I really hope they don't do it again, even though I know they will, because it's such a cheap way to scare people and they can just do it. I hate them. Sorry to anyone that's listening to this that's been a chainsaw scare actor. I don't hate you. I hate the chainsaw. Anyway, I was standing in front of Mel's die-in or whatever, and I watched this chainsaw person get right up on this like group of like young girls, and they got so scared they were crying. And then I watched police come over and they were like talking to them. So I think sometimes chainsaw people need to calm down, because that happened to me last year. I got scared with a chainsaw and hyperventilated. So, you know, I don't know. I just hate them. I hate that they're everywhere. I hate that everywhere I went, they would be there. Like I'd see them one place and I'd go, oh, let me go around this way. And then they'd be at the other place and it's like, okay, can't win. I don't know. I feel like there's so many ways to get around chainsaw. Like I feel like they could do something else instead. But I get it. Everyone uses chainsaws on Halloween. I get it. But I hate them. Maybe for me, they should just not. No chainsaw night just for Bella.
Universal, I know you're listening. As my girl T Swizzle says, you need to calm down. You're being too loud.
True.
Chainsaws I'm indifferent about them. They're fine. They don't really do it for me, but I'm kind of indifferent.
I don't have like chainsaw trauma. Like I don't have I'm not like personally like attacked by chainsaws. I just hate them. And like even with earplugs in, because earplugs are my Horror Nights homie.
Same. Like
that is my earplug. My bottle earplugs is my Scream Squad. Like, you know. That was good. Pat on the back. Good. That was good. Even with chainsaws, I hated the earplugs. Even with earplugs, I hated the chainsaws. So people can't be like, it's the loud sound. No, it's the vibe. And that's it.
I disagree for similar reasons. So I did get I haven't gotten frightened by chainsaws in the past. And by past, I mean 29, because they really weren't there in 30 too much. But this year, I thought that the cast of the chainsaws were so good. I thought it added a lot of energy in the back of the park that was missing last year. Like Springfield, Potter-ish area were just totally dead last year. So I was glad that something at least was happening in Springfield and by the bridge and stuff like that. Also, they brought the food booths on the bridge, so it was kind of more lively there than it was last year. Like it wasn't like the front of the park and then a dead back half. But I got really scared getting a Scarecrow. Walking towards Mel's, I was complaining to my mom, because I was with my mom and my brother that night. I was complaining to her about how one guest was like yelling at a Scarecrow scare actor to pose for a picture. She's like, hey, I'm trying to take a picture of you. I'm taking a picture. Pose for the pic. I'm like, oh, you're so annoying. And I was complaining. And as I'm looking away, I look forward and all I see is white, because there's a chainsaw scare actor right in front of me. And like, it was so loud and so sudden, I couldn't see. And so every time I saw a chainsaw again, I kind of like go, oh, hey, I see ya. Keep going. But I do love that it makes, maybe there's an alternative, but at least an easy way to add some energy, some kineticism to like the parts of the park that aren't scare zones and that keep that energy alive in the event. I think the chainsaws do a good job. And I also, again, I don't know if there's supposed to be minions of the Pumpkin Lord, but if that's the case, I thought it kind of helped him feel like a presence in the park. Even if it wasn't him, it was his chainsaw roaming minions. So I really like the chainsaws this year, but I know not everyone's a chainsaw stan. I'm no stan, but I am a fan. The hierarchy of fandom.
Well, we may have differing opinions on the chainsaws, but we all liked the houses.
Yes.
Shall we get into it?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Well, Adam, do you want to start? We can do the same order as we did with the scare zones.
Sure. I'll go. Yes, I will. So, as I was telling Kelley and Bella before we recorded, I feel like my 10 through 6 are going to be pretty hot takes for some people, because there are some fan favorites that are this low. There are some not so favorites that are higher than what were fan favorites. But then I feel like once we get to my 1 through 5, things will be a bit more peachy, because it's like, oh, that makes sense for Adam. But oh boy, I feel bad putting my number 10 at number 10. And so I'm going to emphasize first, this is not a bad house. This is a great house. And I really do hope that Universal does more houses along this style and theme. It was very different, and I thought what this house did really well, because I do want to emphasize its strengths because nuance. I thought that it adapted really well the Weeknd's music videos, because the Weeknd After Hours Nightmare is my number 10. I thought it adapted the music videos really well. I thought that in the set design, they still kept the metaphors strong in this house. But really, this is one of those cases where a ranking or a number does not do justice. It's excellent. It's a twisted remix of the music videos and the storyline and the metaphors. It was inspired. And as I said before, I hope HHN pursues more ideas like this in the future. Bring on the pop. Bring on the spooky. It doesn't have to always be rock. It doesn't always have to be movies. This felt so at home. And I thought the Weeknd songs and the cues, I thought that it added so much to the vibe. Which, as I'll talk about later, that's the one thing I hated about the Hellblock queue, is it felt so disconnected. Sure, we get the same cue loop all the time, but I knew I could jam to the Weeknd for about 15 minutes with those 3 songs. I loved it. Yeah, and with the Weeknd queue, it was all Weeknd all the time. It was such a vibe. So hey, if we want to do Save Your Tears next year, I am for that. But yeah, this was a lot of people's number 1 house from conversations I've had. I completely see why. But for me, though, the reasons that my number 10 is because I thought it had too many similar scares to other houses that did those scares better. And then other scares that were original there too telegraphed, like the subway toads. You knew a toad was going to pop up on your right, and once you weren't surprised by that, it was going to pop up on your left. They were great costumes. Other scares felt a little cheap. Like the one scare that really got me most in that house was like the internet jump scare that happened at the end, where you're walking by a wall and there's a projection on it, and the Weeknd just goes, ah! like the Exorcist scary maze game. I thought the wallpaper man, I thought he was cool, but again, it felt like, okay, but I wish it was a little bit more. It's a little too fun house. And I just had more runs than not where I'd walk through and I get more weekend ambiance than weekend songs. If I felt the vibe throughout more, this probably would be higher. If more scares stood out that weren't from other houses, like Descendants had the subway scare, the multiple weekends at the end happened in Halloween, and I thought Halloween did it stronger. So this house's strong points are stronger elsewhere, but it was still a really, really good house. Universal, do more houses like this, because it was really great, and it really just adds a great vibe to the event. And my number 9 was all over the place. It really was. Oh man, I hate to put it this low, but Descendants of Destruction is my number 9. So it's at the bottom. It was at the bottom of my hype list before the event. I'm going to say that because it sounded so generic. The reason it sounded so generic is because I had never experienced, I had never watched a video somehow of Seeds of Extinction, which was the predecessor to Descendants of Destruction. So all I had to go off of it was underground subway / Mad Max creatures, post-apocalypse vibe. We're really in the, in the bad stuff now. It just sounded so generic and I couldn't get over it. But then I did it, and I was super impressed by the house. The reason it's at my number 9, I did it 5 times. The reason it's at my number 9 is because there wasn't like that iconic scare or character to make it as memorable or addictive as I wish it could be, that I think 8 other houses had. Even, I think, the generally more hated houses, Descendants of Destruction. That said, it had the best finale, I think, of any house, with the bioluminescent creatures jumping out and the strobe, and they were the only thing lighting it up. I thought that was really, really good and really, really well done. But by that time, that's only like for 30 seconds, and it doesn't stick out because you can hardly see them until you see them. So that's the reason it's at my number 9. But I will say, cast of Descendants of Destruction, you were one of the most aggressive this year. You were so freaking awesome. To the house designers, the detail and depth, I'm still shocked you got into a sprung tent. Maybe it was just all mirrors, but it was amazing. It felt like we were underground. There's such distance that you could see these subway trains dipping under. It was really unbelievable. And the storyline I thought was really told through the environment. And it was a storyline with a meaning. It was about an angry and selfish humanity causing its own destruction. And I know I complained in the first impressions episode that I didn't feel like the storylines this year was as strong, but having experienced the whole event now, I don't feel that way anymore. They just weren't as obvious. But when you really dig into these houses and you dig into these zones, this year was actually really strong. And I thought Descendants of Destruction told its story really well through subway ads talking about, hey, protect your environment, do this thing. Well, obviously that didn't work or didn't happen, because as you see these creatures display, they're just selfish. And it's really it's kind of a warning. It's a house with a message. And I thought that was really clever and really good. So even though it's my number 9, holy cats, it was great. And my number 8, Hellblock Horror. I'm surprised too. But listen, here's a sad story about Hellblock Horror. Poor Hellblock was always facing an uphill climb because everyone's like, oh, it's a quick replacement for an IP. It's not on the shirt. It's a prison house. Really, we're just kind of going to throw all this together. Like it definitely felt last minute, but I still thought it had promise in the concept. I thought maybe it'd be the end of Cabin in the Woods, like the third act of Cabin in the Woods, that much chaos. And very quickly people were like, no. It's not that. It's not that. Don't get your hopes up for that. And then going through the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not that. It's not that at all. These monsters of the past, they feel mostly generic. And there's some memorable ones thrown in, but it's not like a ton of like iconic monsters. And as I mentioned before, the queue, it really took you out of the event. And so that house also had to get you back into the Horror Nights spirit, because while air conditioning's great, it felt really sterile in there. And not that like, you shouldn't feel safe in a theme park in a Halloween Horror Nights event, but it just felt like I wasn't in Horror Nights anymore. So that house had to bring me back into it too. And that's for most of the wait time. And people hated it. But something clicked on Sunday, people said, and that's when I first did it. And again, what happened in there? It was one of the most aggressive casts of the entire event. And it had some of my favorite scares of the event, which is what gives it the edge. Swamp Yeti, crowning achievement. Loved him. I'd argue the house wouldn't work without him. One time we thought he wasn't there. And I'm like, well, this house was a total wash. We waited 45 minutes for nothing. And then he leapt from the shadows. I didn't think he could do that in a cage everyone could see. But Swamp Yeti managed, and Swamp Yeti thrived. I love Swamp Yeti. It's a beautiful display of terror. And the hive hallway was cool. And the cannibal inmate who would spray blood at you in the barracks, those are moments I won't forget soon. Those were so good. And whenever we got Old Smokey up and running, I'm a Twisted Tater. I was pretty happy seeing that man fry. And in a year where this was a lot of folks' weak link, I thought it was dumb, effective fun. I put in my notes, kind of like that Kristen Stewart movie, Underwater. It's nothing special, but it gets the job done. But yeah, despite its struggles, the cast worked double time to make it count and always made it worth it. So my number 7, I feel really bad putting it at my number 7, because I do agree this house is a classic. And not putting it at my number 1 will probably get me written off. It was beautiful. It was atmospheric. It was scary. It was scary, and the skill was utterly jaw-dropping. But I didn't want to do Deadman's Pier Winter's Wake after 4 runs. Granted, I would have done it again, but I'm just like trying to prioritize. And I'm like, I know I'm going to get more out of 6 other houses than Deadman's Pier, which again is objectively probably the best house of the event, but it's not the best house in my heart. It's not my favorite house. It's not my second favorite house. It's my number 7 favorite house, which again, it's one I'd recommend everyone do if they came to the event this year. Kelley just told me I'm canceled. This is true. This is true. Okay, let me just get to the point. Let me get to the point. Objectively, it's the best house of the year. It's one I'd recommend everyone do. The special effects, the immersivity were truly a class of their own. But if I had one complaint, actually, I might have a few because it's at my number 7. The bungee ghost scare, it was always fun, but I don't think it's as strong a final statement as the rest of the house. So like the lighthouse, the boats, the walkways, the violin ghost, the haunting opening line, "Do you hear her song?" Oh my gosh, fantastic, iconic. The last stretch in that submarine, it didn't really have as many of those moments for me. But I'll compare it to this. I'll compare it to this, and maybe it'll make more sense. I compare it to Rise of the Resistance. I was telling Bella this. It's like Rise of the Resistance. Is it the best ride Disney's ever done? Probably. Objectively? Definitely. But within Hollywood Studios, I'm going to want to do Star Tours more and Runaway Railway more. But even though I think every person who's heard of theme parks should go pay admission for Rise alone. But in this case, there are just 6 houses I ended up preferring to do before Deadman's Pier, despite its excellence. I also kind of prefer the Sir Henry's version a little bit more, to be honest. So I'm going to pause here. I know in my notes I say we're going to do 10 through 6 before getting into the rest, but you need to hear the comments that are being shared with me.
So just to let the listeners know, Bella and I are just berating Adam in the Zoom chat right now, asking if he is sick in the head, to use Bella's words.
But okay. We're not even going to talk about Deadman's Pier yet. You would prefer to ride Star Tours over Rise of the Resistance? Are you sick? Do you have like everlasting COVID? Like, are you good? Do we need to get like a wellness check?
No taste. Everlasting COVID.
I'm not saying Star Tours is better than Rise of the Resistance, but like...
Well, I mean, you prefer it.
I do.
Listen, it's been really nice joining the podcast. Bella and I are out. Sorry, you guys.
Hey, the Star Tours hot take was out long before y'all joined the show. You could have known beforehand.
We're kicking Adam out of his own podcast.
Honestly.
Well, it's been fun. Anyway, yes, we were trying to be quiet and respectful and nodding and making like small expressions until this number 7 hot take. Okay.
Again, everyone should have done it when I was pushing Bella to do it. I'm like, Bella, you can't do. It's October. You got to do this house before the event ends because you'll regret it because you'll think it's so good. It's objectively the best house. I just referred 6 more, which I thought were just as strong, except my first 2. I think they might have been stronger in my heart. So yes,
fair enough. I guess we'll let you continue, but just had to let the listeners know that. Adam does not speak for all of us.
I feel like saying my number 6 after my number 7. It's just kind of comedic timing because it's Spirits of the Coven. Okay. No, Bella's shaking her head, so no, I'm still canceled. Don't worry. Hey guys, wait until number 3. Things are going to pick up really good. or wait until Bella and Kelley give their lists. That'll probably save the show. So I don't think any house had as much of a transformation over the course of the year as Spirits of the Coven. It's easily the longest house of the event, but its detractors were very vocal with their disappointment that it didn't feel packed with scares. But despite that, even from the beginning, and if you listen to the first impressions episode, you know I went into that with mixed feelings. But because the original version, I really appreciated the more low-key approach of the original version. There were less vocal triggers, and it reminded me of a horror movie from the 20s era in the best ways. Some might say, like, you mean it's quiet and not much happens? No, felt moody and good. So I definitely had a more mixed response to the initial updates when they first added the vocal triggers. It didn't feel like everything was kind of blending and being cohesive, because I was trying to make a house that was doing something different, more mainstream, I thought it was excelling in the moody and atmospheric. Okay, you kind of go through this house and you discover it. You discover more about it. So I grew determined. I'm seeing the chat. I was told I am moody because of your 7. Just like, yep, I know. I grew determined. Listen, I grew determined to love Spirits of the Coven because of the potential and the passion that the characters had for it, it was obvious the event had for it. And after a couple of runs in the latter day event version, so like around October, I really did fall in genuine love with the underdog house as it grew scarier and made the hypnotic descent to the Witch Queen's lair more intense. But at that point, it really wasn't losing the spirit of what set it apart initially for me. More than any other house this year, I think this one particularly benefits by rerunning it and diving deeper into the storyline and details, which honestly is not too dissimilar to some of my favorite houses from last year and of all time, Bride of Frankenstein Lives and Case Files Unearthed. That's not going to appeal to everyone, especially when the lines were as rough as they were this year. 45, 55, 75 minutes for Spirits of the Coven. I know that wasn't worth it for a lot of people. And for frequent flyers and diehards, I think it was incredibly detailed, wonderfully vibey, is what I put in my notes. And it was expertly immersive. And it's one I'm so glad I gave a second chance. It was one house I kept on trying to discover, and I did discover. And I'm like, okay, I totally see what you're about now. It really got scary. One night, it was just like off the chain. And it took 6 runs to get there. Maybe I should have given 6 runs to Deadman's Pier. Maybe that's more of a thing for the queue. I'm going to blame it on the queue. But yeah, Coven was my number 6. And I'm not allowed to host the show anymore. So it's good knowing you folks.
That is true. However, I think that my number 9 is going to be controversial. And it was my number 10, like literally until today. I changed my mind and decided maybe it should deserve number 9, and I'll get into those reasons. But I guess I can just get into my list if you didn't have any more thoughts on your 6 through 10.
Nope, those are all the thoughts I have. I think we've gotten your thoughts on my thoughts pretty well established.
That pretty much sums it up. Well, so I'll get into mine then. I don't think my number 10 is controversial, but my number 10 was Hell Block Horror. And it's a prison house. I'm one of those people that prison houses I've never had a prison house like be memorable and hit for me. I do love Swamp Yeti so much. So that was the best scare in the entire house for me. At least I didn't get the blood splatter scare. Like I never got that. I saw it on video and it looked really cool, and I didn't get the electric chair scare either. So I feel like the 2 other most iconic scares I never got, because obviously I can only do it once, but it was cool. Like we said, in my opinion, there's no bad house this year. So I still did like this house, but it just wasn't, I'm a huge Cabin in the Woods fan. So I was kind of hoping for more of that. I thought it was a cool idea, and there were a couple of scenes I enjoyed, but it didn't hit for me, and I knew it wouldn't. Like I don't remember if it was at the bottom of my hype list. I think it might have moved up a little bit just because it was like, oh, maybe Cabin in the Woods kind of thing, which is to say that I hope that they do a Cabin in the Woods house at some point again. I think they have in the past, but I never went through one, so that would be cool. Okay, number 9. I feel like this is going to be controversial, particularly for Adam. So maybe Adam will kick me off of the podcast for this one, because I don't know where this lands on your list, but I'm pretty sure you like it a lot because we've talked about it a lot off air. It's Fiesta de Chupacabras.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going. I'm kind of relieved.
Is it not?
That is not what I thought you were going to say at all.
No, I thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I got some scared faces and I was like, oh no. No, it's number 9 for me, but it makes me sad because it was pretty high up on my hype list. I know it was in the top 5, like maybe 4 on my hype list, but I don't know. I loved the opening scene though, with like the fireworks and the storyteller in the beginning, and just I thought that was so cool. I love that it was a bilingual house. Like, obviously, I didn't understand a lot of the lines because of that, and I would love to like read what some of them were and things like that. But I just thought it was cool for representation purposes, and I don't know, because it depends. It's hard. It's hard for me to say I don't really like gross houses as much, but generally like the houses that have a lot more of the heavy gore are not my favorite unless there's like other things going on with that. And like, I don't know, like it just didn't hit for me like the way I was hoping it would. The Chupacabra puppets were really fun though. And there was a scene that you're walking through where these 2 like metal boxes on either side like shoot down. And that probably was one of the scariest things for me in the entire event. So it was a really, really solid house, and I love the idea, and I feel like it was a huge labor of love, and the people that worked on it, like I saw on Twitter, just put so much into it, and I don't know. They did a fantastic job, and the actors were great. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I wish I loved it more. So that makes me sad. My number 8 is The Weeknd. I'm sorry, Bella. I know you love that house. I know a lot of people love that house. That's also controversial, but Adam said it first, so.
That's right. I
put
said
it
all my
lower.
hot takes first, so I take the heat.
So, sorry, Adam, you get all the heat on that. But I mean, number 8, I did still love it. I thought it was very fun. I think part of my bias with that is that I'm not a strobe person either. Like, there was a lot of strobe lights. What was it? Dead Exposure was the same thing. I thought it was a well done house a couple years ago, but it was just all strobe lights, so it fell lower on my list, and it was not one that I did again. I probably would have done The Weeknd multiple times if I could have, because it's The Weeknd, and I thought the music was great. The vibes were great. The scare actors were so into it, and it was just fun. I was like dancing through it the whole time, and I hope that they do more of those horror music houses that aren't like the rock genre. Like, I know we've definitely talked about that before. Let's do a Reputation Taylor Swift house. Lady Gaga, Bella says. That's a good idea too. I know. I just thought of that on the fly though with Reputation. I'm like, bring me a Taylor Swift house. Do it. I don't know how they would do that, but I think it would be cool. So yeah, so I love the idea, and I think it was a really great house, but it just didn't hit for me as much as, again, I hoped it would. My number 7 is probably the house that scared me the most. I loved Descendants of Destruction, but I don't know. It was really cool. I think the bioluminescent thing at the end was really amazing. I think for me, maybe I just loved Seeds of Extinction so much that I was like, a lot of my love for Seeds of Extinction like went on to this house. I felt very unsettled as I was walking into it, kind of like I did with Dead Exposure. When you're, Dead Exposure, the whole point is that you're like going blind and you're going underground and all these things. So it kind of felt like that we're like going underground, and it's very unsettling. And so I did really like Descendants of Instruction. I can't speak. DOD. But yeah, I don't know. It just didn't hit like in the top 5 or anything, obviously, but I don't know. I thought it was a cool house though, and the scare actors did such a good job. The smells in that house were like very intense and added a lot to the atmosphere, and just, yeah, I loved that house so much. But number 6 is a house that I am glad I will never have to do ever again, and that is the Bug House. Bug House. Beautifully done house. Don't ever want to do it again. It scared me like so bad. It scared me so bad. And the dark hallway where it feels like everything's touching you. I am not a fan of bugs. The other day there was a spider on my bananas, on my banana tree, and I was sobbing, calling my dad to come take care of it because my husband wasn't home and I don't do bugs. So obviously I thought this was going to be my number 10 before I went through it. I didn't even want to go through it. This podcast is the only reason I went through it, and I'm glad I did, because the beginning scene was iconic and I love her. I want to dress as her. She was so cool. The smells were interesting with like the smell of the spray, like the pine kind of smell. I loved the part where you're walking into like to the house and they have all the like ads for the spray, and they just, I don't know, the theming was really, really, really well done. And it was like gross and creepy and weird and just a lot. I love the redemption arc from the girl in the beginning where she is in the house and she's kind of going insane and trying to kill these bugs. So yeah, I did love Bug House, but I also hated Bug House. So that's why it was the hardest one for me to rank, because I was like, do I put this at the bottom because I never ever want to do it again? Or do I put it towards the top because it's phenomenally done? So it ended up kind of in the middle for me, but I guess lower middle. But yeah, I think Bug House is great, but no thank you. Once was enough.
I'm so proud that it's so high up on your ranking.
Thank you.
I'm so proud.
It took a lot of bravery just to go in there, so I'm also proud that it was so high on my rankings. But
yeah,
I'm honestly shocked that it beat the Descendants of Instruction.
Me too.
Yeah.
Instruction. Dang it. The DOD house. I'm also shocked because Descendants of Destruction was above Bug House like originally when I was ranking it, but as I sat on it, I was like, Bug House is too iconic for me to rate it so low. And I don't want to say Descendants of Destruction wasn't memorable, but it just, I don't know, Bug House, like I can remember like every scene of that in my brain, and I don't feel the same way about that. I only remember the hard-hitting scenes for that one. So like my top 6 then are all houses that like were just extremely memorable for me, and the ones under that were kind of like okay, but yeah.
No, I get that. Do you have anything to say, Adam, or do you have any more thoughts, Kelley, before I do mine?
We only had 2 that were off, Bella, for the scare zones. Our 3 and 5 were swapped, but everything else.
Yeah.
I'm curious how similar our house rankings are going to be.
Okay, so mine's going to be a little different because I didn't get to do Descendants of Destruction, even though I went a bunch. I just never was back in that side of the park, and I have friends who have issues like with strobe and stuff and like just didn't get to do it. So I'm going to, obviously it wouldn't have been a number 10 in my book, but I'm going to give it the honorary 10 because I didn't get to do it. But like I watched the videos and it looked so cool. Love the skeleton that ended up holding a waffle with roaches on it. I loved all the ads. I just thought it was so cool and I wish I got to see it. My number 9, I did towards the end of the event because I went really slow doing houses. I did towards the end of the event. I didn't think it was that scary. The guy behind me must have thought it was because he was on the floor rolling around the whole time. It was Hellblock Horror. That's my number 9. We got the Yeti, the Swamp Yeti. But one time we went through it, it was like some random like monkey. It was just like a monkey mask. It was weird. I don't know. I also didn't get the electric chair or the blood, I don't think. But I did see the alien guy, and that made it worth it. That made it all worth it. I said that this house is what a burnt vape tastes like. No, I will not be elaborating, but if you know, you know. It's very dark, very stroby, lots of fog. It was there. I hate that it had so much fog, right, Kelley? I hate that it had that massive queue. It was nice walking in there though on like really hot nights because we would use the ADA pass for it because most of the time we could just walk right on. So it'd be like really hot and then we'd walk into that room and it was like nice, like and cold. So I'll give it that. But that was a house that definitely happened. I'm glad other people liked it, but I didn't. Well, I don't think any of us really had it up that high. No. My number 8 is not surprising. It's Bugs. It's Bugs. I hated every second of it. Even though it was campy and iconic and fun, I hated every second I was in there and I wanted out the whole time. I wasn't afraid of the bugs that much. It was the holes. Sorry to all the viewers I just triggered with that. Sorry. TW, trigger warning, holes. That I wasn't that scared of the bugs because I watched the videos. I was like, okay, they look so fake. They don't look real. And there's a jumbo dancing grub. Like, hello. We love jumbo grub though, but it was the holes. I can't do it. And I'm literally like walking through It was back in my not brave era where I would still close my eyes on like the last 2 weeks of the event where I was brave all of a sudden. Literally like holding on to my friend for dear life, like not looking at all. Hated the dark hallway. That felt, oh God, it was awful. It was awful. Loved Jumbo Grub. The giant spider was kind of cute though. I'll give it that. But I love the girl at the front. I thought it was cute. I thought it was campy. It's an interesting concept, but I really wanted to dress up as Bob Duncan from Bob's Bugs Be Gone and go out there and take pictures in front of it. But I never did. If I did a Mask in the Horror Tour, I would have dressed up as Bob Duncan and taken pictures outside of Bugs because I think that would just be iconic. It's my number 8. So my number 7, this was a very tough decision for my number 7 because it was fun. It's really fun. It's cute. It's campy. There's a wonderful piano man in there. But my number 7 is Spirits of the Coven. Oh my God, the guy who played the piano in Coven. If you're listening to this, you probably know who I'm talking about. There was this one little old man that played the piano scare in Coven, and I loved him so much. So that's what kept the house. I mean, it's number 7. I guess I would say it's pretty high up there. That's what made it up there. I don't know. I honestly really couldn't tell you the plot of that house, but I was living. I loved like the 1920s music. Like I loved the costumes. Like I loved the vibes. Not gonna lie, I loved the Sif. It's kind of fun. Only liked it in that one. Like there's like roots. That was fun. Even though it always hit me in the eye. That wasn't fun. But I don't know. I think it got way too much hate. Because like it's okay. It was a pretty solid concept. Didn't really match up to like what people were expecting. But that's why you don't have high expectations. What did MJ say in Spider-Man? Expect disappointment and you will never be disappointed. Exactly. That's how you don't hate Spirits of the Coven, everybody. I want a direct apology to me for hating that house because I loved it. Anyway, but the last also that house felt like it was 8 years long. I felt like I aged through that house. Like it was forever. Every time I went through it, I was checking my fake watch. I was like, dang, this is going on forever. And I don't wear a watch. It was long. You're right. In the end, it really didn't make sense. I don't know how we got to that point, but it was fun. I was living. They slayed. Anyway, my number 6. This is gonna have some fighting words. Okay. I liked this house a lot. I really liked this house. I did it once when I wasn't brave. And I really wish I got to do it again because I never went back there the rest of the event. But my number 6 is Universal Monsters. I'm sorry.
Well, it looks like it's just me on the podcast now because Adam's kicked off and Bella's kicked off.
No, listen to me. Listen, I loved it. The one time I did it once. Keep that in mind. I did it once. The rest of my top, I did more than once. So I got a while to form opinions. I did love it. I love the monsters. I think they should always be at the event. I think there should always be Universal Monsters House because there's so many things you can do with it. So many. I thought the set was awesome. It also kind of smelled good in there. So I appreciate it. Hashtag Bella is canceled party. Okay, someone get it trending. Get it going. Hashtag Adam is canceled party too. But I don't know. It was a very aggressive house, but like aggressive in a good way. I don't think we got the flying scare. I don't know. I wasn't looking. I also couldn't tell you who won because I wasn't looking because it was right before my brave era. But I would look up after the triggers, so I would see most of it. But it was fun. I liked the vibes. I liked the beat. It was good. What's that like Wendy Williams thing? I like the beat. But yeah, that's my number 6. That's my number honorary 10 through 6.
Pause. Did someone different win? Not literal pause, but like just did someone different win every time? I did not.
I know Dracula won the last night.
Yeah, everyone. They changed it out per night. I think that was the consensus. It could have been per cast, but I think everyone ended up saying it was everyone per night.
Oh, I think it was the Mummy for me, and I think I just didn't think anything of it because I knew that there was more Mummy in our house than the other coast. Interesting. Okay, I didn't even realize that. See, this is what happens when you only go through once, people. Jeez. But wow, that's controversial, Bella.
I know.
Although, Kelley, you're not safe from controversy because you haven't, and your bottom 5 said Spirits of the Coven yet, which was a lot of people's number 10. So
I
but
haven't.
I don't know
So
what
I
would
do-
give on yours either. So these are very
I
interesting
do
lists.
think it is interesting. I do think my Spirits of the Coven listing is controversial. It's number 1. I'm just kidding. It's not. But the fact that it's not in the bottom 5 is probably controversial. That's probably my most controversial opinion. And Chupacabras obviously being so low is definitely controversial too. But yeah, interesting.
Nothing will beat having the all-timer house or the house of the year in the bottom.
Yeah, we're crazy.
But we love
That
them.
is
They were
wild.
so good. They were so
They
good.
are.
The houses this year were really great.
Every house, yeah, was so good this year, so it's hard. Well, what's your number 5 through 3, Adam? I'm curious.
Oh yes, my number 5, and the reason I didn't react the way you thought I was going to react. So it's my number 5 is Fiesta de Chupacabras. Perhaps one of the year's goriest houses. There was so much gore. I personally found it one of the scariest. The way I put it, terror has a name, and that name is Chupacabras. I love the puppets and how intense the performers are with them. I came face to face with way too many, but please do it more. I mean, the event's over, but next year I want to see those puppets again. I want to see them face to face so I can jump, flinch, kick air, not directed towards a scare actor because that's bad, but just be like, oh my gosh, because that's what happened. This also happened. This house had me murmuring Monty Python to myself to bait the fear factor at one point. I remember getting into the courtyard and I'm like, I'm overwhelmed right now, and there's still half a house left to go. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Because there was so much dead in this house. As I said before, I was expecting more fiesta, but it really did deliver on the Chupacabras. It was not a pleasant house to be in, but that means it did its job. I also thought that the story of the house was well enhanced by the Discover Universal podcast backstory. As I mentioned earlier, something that they did different this year is they have a podcast now. And so they actually had the creators of the event give backstories to select scare zones and houses. And so that backstory is on the Mask Maker and kind of emphasized that Fiesta is more of a cover because it is all carnage and sacrifice, which I thought this really portrayed well. This one, though, was actually one which I noticed doing it in October, not just September, is that it was sadly given plexiglass to protect certain show elements from guests over time. So, like, there's one great scare where an unseen chupacabra would pull a dead body, and that at first, you got sprayed by it, I think, and then it was covered by plexi, either to protect guests or guests were trying to hold on to the dead body. I don't know what happened. But that eventually went away. I did notice, too, that there was a guy with, like, a torch who would, like, create sparks. And that scene, the last run I did, it was covered by plexi. I don't even know if the guy was there. They might have just canceled that scare. I'm not sure. So, despite that, though, it was never not one of the most demented and terrifying houses for me, just because of the level of violence and carnage, and for me, scare factor. And I love those Choopy puppets. Number 4 for me is Halloween, which, fun fact, was my number 1 on the first night. Just 3 other houses just kind of went up the ranks for me. But yes, Halloween. I love the original Halloween. It's become one of my favorite horror movies this year. And I've also loved discovering the mixed bag that this series is for myself this season. Watched the Blumhouse trilogy, watched Halloween 2. I really enjoyed Halloween 3 quite a bit, which does not have Michael Jennifer Myers, but I really like those movies. And so my first HHN year was 2019, as I've mentioned before, so I didn't have the privilege of doing a Michael Myers house yet. So what a great house to experience him in for the first time. It was a perfect adaptation of that original movie, and it was one that was enhanced like tenfold by watching it shortly before my visit. The placement of the Michaels are creative. I think of the hedge scare. I didn't always get it, but it was so clever the way they did it, where they showed him coming down the hedge and you think he's on the side of the house, but he's not. He is right next to you. Perfectly done. There are other creative Michaels throughout too. Oh, the Michael Mirror labyrinth at the end. Great ending. The closet scene. Great scare. For the few minutes that we're in that house, it's hard to argue we haven't been transported to Haddonfield. What's the soundstage again? I don't know. We're in Haddonfield. Though it's unfair to the house. I never wanted to wait in the extreme queues this house gained, so I only did it 4 times. And I think that affected some of my feelings for the house towards the middle of the event, where it's starting to get into like number 5, number 6. But the more I think about it, it was below Chucky, it was below Coven. And I'm like, but it was such a perfect adaptation. And now that there's distance, I'm like, no, that's a really strong house. And I love that house. It's so memorable. And honestly, the pacing was truly effective. And the pacing was like exactly like the movie, I felt like. From the cold open with young Michael and his dead sister. And then you get the logo as Michael kind of appears in the shadows. And then you get the October 30th scene with Dr. Loomis, and then you go into the actual events of Halloween night, and I thought I did a great job portraying that movie, which I love. So my number 3, boy, oh boy, oh boy. If you thought number 7 was weird for me, because yeah, if you thought Dead Men's Pier at 7 was weird for me, if you listen to our First Impressions episode, you're probably like, wait a minute, he didn't say his least favorite house from the First Impressions. That's because it's at my number 3 now. The Horrors of Blumhouse is my number 3 this year. Colored me surprised, colored me shocked. I had the worst run ever at first, but the following 3 runs, every time I went through, I'm like, holy crap, that's such a good house. Not even good, that's a great house. That is a great, great house. I don't even count that first run anymore. Because on that second run, when I really experienced just how terrifically frightening the black phone portion was, I thought maybe Freaky didn't leave a strong impression. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's like my number 8. And then I did a third run. And on that third run, I'm like, that's an incredible house. That's an incredible house. Because then I'm like, the freaky portion is really fun. And when guests aren't racing through to get to the other side, the full scares here are really, 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 really dang solid. Butcher Cassie is an icon. The black phone, though, it's one of the scariest houses all on its own. I'm not ranking them separately. I know I did that at one point. I know some people are doing it now. I saw one house. There's just 2 really long halves. The Black Phone on its own, though, could have been one of the scary houses of the year. So it really shows how clever Universal can be in translating a one-room movie into a terrifying labyrinth without ever really feeling samey for me. The dark hallways, I know we knock them. We especially knock Hollywood for it because you watch the videos. It's like, all we're seeing are black walls. But I thought here they were utilized really well here in Orlando, and the grabber actors, they did such a great job. All of them felt different. All of them felt scary. It was never not a scary time in that house. I always cheered for Finney when he finally killed the grabber. Spoiler alert if you didn't watch The Black Phone. But I mean, come on, guys. It was a house this year. I do wish I was either on board with this one faster or the waits weren't fighting with Halloween all the time. Because really, at the end of the day, this ended up being a favorite one after all. And it was my favorite Stay and Scream. I don't even love these movies a whole lot. Like Freaky, Black Phone, they're fine. They're good. I don't love these movies, but I love this house. So that is my 5 through 3.
Ours are similar.
Ooh.
Extremely similar.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So does my 6 through 10 feel that bad anymore? Or is it still pretty bad?
Just number 7.
Just number 7 needs some rethinking, maybe.
Yeah, rethinking. Why don't you just do them again? Come on. Sad. I wish I could do them again. Okay, well, let's get into it with my number 5. My number 5 is Spirit of the Coven. It actually, if you would have asked me after the, right after I did it, I would have put it at number 3, which I think is even more controversial. But when I have watched more videos and thought more on the ones that ended up being my number 4 and number 3, I couldn't put them above Spirit of the Coven. However, it was the last house I did of the night, and I was just not sure what to expect. I had heard a lot of bad things, but I don't know. I went into it and I immediately loved the vibes of the first portion of the house is like one of my favorite things. Like I loved the flapper girl. I loved the piano man. I loved the whole what's the password and everything, and the music, and just the vibes were immaculate. And then I know the second half of the house is where it gets more controversial. I went like the third weekend of the event, so I think they'd already made some changes by that point with like sound triggers and things like that. So I don't really have anything to compare it to from the opening weekend, but I know like one of the witches came out and told my husband that he looked ripe, which I thought was funny. And like the fact that it's like turning into, I don't know, it just got very unsettling. Like the first half of the house is a party and the last half was like quiet and creepy and just extremely unsettling, which I think you can do so well. And I think it was done really well because of the complete tone shift. And I think that is what took a lot of people away from it, because they were like, oh, I don't like this tone shift. I liked one portion, you know, the beginning portion, and I don't like how it shifted. I thought it was great that it shifted, because I think that it just added a lot to the whole tone of the house and the vibe of the ending scenes. My biggest thing is just the ending in general didn't, like, I can't even really remember the finale part of it, which makes me think like maybe it wasn't as memorable as some of the other finales of the houses. But I did really like the scare actors in that, and I think it was, I don't know, because the last half was more empty too, I know a lot of people said, but again, it just adds to the unsettling factor. You don't know when something's going to jump out at you. So I thought it was a very well done house, and I really enjoyed it. Number 4 was Blumhouse. And if you would have told me that Blumhouse was going to be in my top 5 after it's been number 10 every single year that I've done a Blumhouse house, all of the Blumhouse houses have been my number 10, did them like once or maybe twice and never wanted to do them again. This one was fantastic. I loved this house. I thought it was so well done. I thought both portions were well done. I think that I've never seen Freaky, so maybe that went into a factor of like why, which I need to watch it, but I think that went into the factor of maybe why I loved the black phone so much, and it was scarier in that portion. But the first half of the house was so fun, and I feel like it had the same kind of vibe as Spirit of the Coven, where it's like, okay, the first half is a party, and the second half is gonna scare you so bad because it is so unsettling. So the first half, I know the premise of the movie, but I haven't seen it. But I know that, like, technically it's not a girl, it's a male serial killer in her body, but I support women's rights and women's wrongs. So I love all of the girls that played. I don't even know the character's name. Belanos. Hold please. Millie.
It's Millie, and I totally said Cassie, didn't I? I said Butcher Cassie. Butcher Millie.
Butcher Millie. Millie, every actress playing Millie, phenomenal. I love her. The saw that Adam mentioned, that scene was incredible. I got to see perfect timing for that, and that was amazing. So yeah, that was a great house. Very and very, well, you know, it's all the same house, but it was very scary too. Like, I got a lot of good scares, but it was just a fun time. Black Phone, like Adam said, like, we talk a bunch of crap about those black hallways in Hollywood, but in some houses, when you're actually there and in it, I feel like it doesn't convey as well on video. But when you're in that room with the phone at the end of the hallway, and just, wow, I really enjoyed that movie. It's not one of my favorite horror movies of all time or anything, but I thought it was very good, and it scared me a lot. I watched that movie and I walked out of it, and the first thing I said to my friend was, how in the world are they going to turn this into a haunted house? It's one room. And they did such a good job. I love that they did what they do in the movie, where the grabber's mask is different in every single room that you're in, and it's different in every scene of the movie. Like, that was just so creative. The scene where he's in the kitchen, I did not know that was a puppet. And I'm so glad, or I guess not a puppet, but like a figure that doesn't move. And I'm so glad that I didn't know, because it added to a lot of scare factor. I was horrified, and I'm sure people run around it all day. I heard someone say that was an actual actor the last night. I probably would have died in that house. Rest in peace, me. You would have had to drag me off the floor, because I would have been so scared, because I would have let my guard down completely by that point. So 10 out of 10, great job for them doing that, even though I didn't get to experience it, unfortunately. But that was so good. The whole house was so good. I loved it. And again, the fact that Blumhouse is a number 4 on my list at all is just, I am not going to judge them as hard just by the name anymore if they do more Blumhouse houses, because that was great. Number 3 is Halloween. I loved Halloween. It's so good. I love the movie. The original Halloween movie is one of my favorite horror movies. I love Michael Jennifer Myers. I thought it was a perfect Halloween house. Like, I have done the Halloween 4 house. I can't remember if I've done any other Halloween houses at the event, but I didn't love the Halloween 4 house, and I know a lot of people did. I loved this house. It was a love letter to the movie. The hedge scene is incredible. The finale scene is incredible. All Laurie Strode, just the whole thing. I love little Michael as well in the clown outfit. It was just great. I loved that house. I wish that I could have done like the Unmasking the Horror for that, where you get to see the house and walk through it during the daytime, because that was just, I loved Halloween. It was very fun. Great house.
Love it. Love it. Oh my God.
I also feel like, I didn't say this, but I feel like they did a good job of like, when you do a house like that, you run the risk of it's just Michael over and over and over again. And they added a lot of different scares in there too, and made it more creative so that it wasn't that. Because sometimes when it's a slasher house like that, you're like, that's how I felt about Halloween 4. I was like, okay, we get it, it's Michael Myers. But this one, I felt like they made it very creative and very Haddonfield. Like Adam said, it's like you're transported there.
Our rankings are so close to each other. All of ours. Because my number 5 is Fiesta de Chupacabra. I loved it. I didn't love the smell. It smelled kind of weird. But I loved it. It was so much fiesta, so much Chupacabra, like Adam said at the beginning of like Horror Nights season this year. I loved like the opening with like all the scaffoldings and the fire. Oh my gosh. It was giving party. I loved it. Fiesta, obviously. Dancing through like the beginning of that. Loved it so much. I loved the puppets. I love when houses use puppets, and I feel like that's the only house that used puppets this year for the most part.
Bugs definitely did.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, Bugs had puppets. Yeah. Oh yeah, they did. Okay, so there are only 2 houses that use puppets, and I think more houses should use puppets. I love puppets. I've said puppets so many times. Anyway, I just thought it was so fun. I loved all the masks. I love how it was bilingual. I loved it. Wait, Kelley, I just realized Chupacabras was your number 9.
It was my number 9, but I did think it was a really good house.
Why did I think you said 5?
I said 5. That's probably why.
Yeah, Adam did, I think.
Yeah, anyway. I'm reading it. I'm like, we're not the same. Adam, we're the same. But I don't know, like, the masks, I love how it was bilingual. Okay, I didn't like the Sif in that one because the chains would hit me directly in the eye every time, and it felt like a personal leg attack every time. I thought it was really creative. I thought it was fun. I guess like Adam, like your spirit like was ghosting this girl that was in front of me because she was on top of the person going with her. Like she was on top of, like she was terrified. And I was like, okay, queen. I didn't think it was super scary to me. It definitely was like gory and gross, but I thought it was fun. And I love all the little chupacabras. They're so cute. Oh, I loved how you could hear the growling the whole house. I thought that was so awesome. I loved it. My number 4 is Mr. Michael Jennifer Myers. Mr. Michael Jennifer. I watched Halloween shortly before Horror Nights this season, and I hated every second of it. I thought it was the most boring thing I've ever watched in my entire life. I'm sorry. Okay. I thought it was, sorry. I know I'm canceled. I know.
Really quick, I'll throw in a controversial opinion just so you get less hate for that. I felt that way about Texas Chainsaw. I watched Texas Chainsaw recently. I know Adam's getting a face right now.
I understand that. I get that.
Oh man, the dinner scene wigs me out.
Oh, don't even mention that.
I don't even want to know what that is.
Ooh, it's gross. And
One
scary.
day I'll watch Texas Chainsaw.
It's a classic, but anyway, I love Halloween, but I do feel that way about Texas Chainsaw, so I understand.
Thank you.
But if anyone listening to this feels that way about Scream,
I will come for you. I will end you so fast if you feel that way about Scream.
Get out of here. We're all Billy Loomis stands here.
Me and my dead man's peer opinions will make you a dead man.
And we'll throw you to a pier.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. I just had to get some of the heat off of you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, homie. But okay, maybe it wasn't the most boring thing I've ever watched. I watched the Scream MTV series. That was pretty bad. And as a Scream stan,
can confirm. I agree.
It was bad. But it didn't do it for me. I was like, okay, Slay, Jamie Lee Curtis, Activia Queen, work. I
had to unmute to laugh at that. You deserved the laugh.
That is Jamie Lee Curtis, right? Yeah, that is.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I love
Activia. Anyway, I thought it was okay. But the house. I love the house. I love the closet scare. I loved the closet scare. It was so fun, so crazy. Walking through the clothes made me so scared every single time. I was like, I don't like it, but I loved it. The hedge scare. The hedge scare. Oh my God. I got it the last time I went through the house. I got it like after we waited like 2.5 hours for our return time, mind you. Maybe not 2.5, but 2 hours. We like it was lined up perfectly. We're walking along the hedge as he's walking along it in the mirror. Oh my God. It was so good. It was so good. I also love that one when you turn the corner of the house and he's like in the window. Also the facade. Oh my God. I love the music. I said this when all the announcements came out. I was so excited to hear the Halloween theme at a Horror Nights event, and I loved every second of it. It's great. I don't know, because it scared me. Michael Myers is scary. Michael Jennifer, that is a scary man. But I loved it. That last room at the mirrors, even in my Brave era, I'd be running through there with my like head like covered, like no, get away from me, like screaming. I hated it. That's my number 4. My number 3 is Blumhouse as well. I watched both of these movies before, and I love Freaky. I loved Freaky. I thought it was so good. It's like one of my favorite movies I've watched this year. Probably one of my favorite horror movies, top 3 at least. I thought it's like a campy Freaky Friday, but slasher, and I love it. And I was so excited for them to do this as a house, because I always thought it was going to be the second part after how heavy Black Phone is. But no, you need the comedy and the campiness before, because Black Phone, oh God, but I'll get into that later. The Chaw scare, the Saw scare is genius. It's so good. It's just, I loved it. There's not really much to say about it because it's short, but I loved it. I loved like the chanting in the beginning. Like, it's just so good. It's so good. But the Black Phone. I watched that movie and I had no idea how they were going to be able to do this as a house. Because 1, it's in one room, and 2, the topic. It's very, but dear God, that house. And like you said, the black hallways, they look terrible on video. But for that house, because it felt like you were walking in like a void. And then there would just be the grabber with like his spray or like the balloons. Oh my God. Or the axe. Oh my God. But like you said, Kelley, if I walked into that room and the mannequin got up, I would be dead on the floor. Every single person that responded to that tweet said the same thing. They're like, I would have actually like died on the spot. Because after 2 months of the event, your guard goes down. They're like, okay, that's a mannequin. But in Hollywood's, it never was, which I think is iconic. But like, it was genius. I wish they did more like with the kids talking to Finney. Like there was more of that, because I felt like that was the most impactful like part of the movie. And the dummy of the grabber at the end looked so bad when he's getting choked out. It made me giggle. That's my one downside of the house. But it was unsettling. It scared me. And in my Brave era, when I went through it, that got me good. But I did have annoying people in front of me every time I went through it, because the last time I did it, they would literally turn around at every scare and just like stand there and stare at them. I'm like, okay, let's keep it going. But I loved it. That's my 5 through 3.
Ooh, it was really good. The only thing that I liked about it being a dummy, although I didn't end up, for the listeners, I didn't get to do the Unmasking the Horror Tour this year, which was unfortunate, but definitely I want to do it next year. I wish I would have, though, because I love all the selfies people are getting with the dummy from the grabber in that room. Like, that is cool. But I love that Hollywood, I actually haven't seen a video of their version of the house yet, but I love that they had that as an actor. I definitely thought it was going to be, and I was waiting for that scare. But it's also cool, like, at least the first time you go through it, that you don't know that it looked so real. Like, they did a really good job.
Because it made noise.
It did.
It was snoring.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Forgot about that, yeah.
It's crazy.
I think it just goes to show how strong that Fast and Furious location is. due to its size. Like, what a strong like entryway as a location to have this Blumhouse this year. I know like Disaster, Earthquake, that Fast and Furious replaced, like that extended queue had been used a lot in the past, since like almost the beginning of the event. So it's kind of like a nice callback to, location callback to how it was. But yeah, I hope they do more houses in there that really take advantage of that space, because Blumhouse did, and it was incredible.
Even though we're going to talk about this in the next episode, with the whole Curious George Kid Zone area going away, I think it would be very smart to keep the Fast and Furious location, because they could do one mega house, honestly, if they wanted to. And like, yeah, it's a tent. They're kind of limited. But if they felt really crazy and they really wanted to, I am sure they could do Stranger Things in a tent. I'm sure they could. And that's how they can fit both Volume 1 and Volume 2. Or they can fit all 5 Scream movies into one.
Universal. I know you're listening.
I'm going to tweet Universal every single day until they make a Scream house. I think
Day
I'm going
375.
I'm going to start it right now. Go follow me on Twitter, everyone.
While you're doing that, I just had to say, I think it's interesting that, because I have been sitting here thinking about what everyone's top 2 are and trying to guess what everyone's number 1 is, and I think I have them guessed correctly. But I think it's interesting that all of our top 2, somebody has that house in the bottom. Oh my gosh, she's tweeting as we speak. Go like and retweet so that Universal listens. That's amazing.
That's at Bella Harvey with 2 Y's.
It is. But yeah, I think it's interesting that we all have top houses that are in at least one person's bottom. So very interesting.
That is really interesting, yeah.
I think I've got you all guessed correctly, though, for your 1 and 2, but we shall see.
Yeah,
I guess. You definitely have my 1.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And All right. My number 2 and my number 1, because you gotta get from number 2 to number 1. Or else you're going to just be like, oh, I know what the number 1 is. And honestly, either of these could be number 1, depending on how I'm feeling that day. There was one, though, that I will always remember, and I will always cherish my time with this house. I'm so sad that it's gone, and it'll probably never show up again. But the other one, I think, is like Spider-Man caliber, where if I didn't do it that night, I would feel so sad and so disappointed in myself. So I always made a point to do it every night, sometimes twice. So, and honestly, I could probably feel that way about both, but it's like the slimmest of difference, the slimmest of margins. And like, oh my gosh, I love my number 2. I love my number 2 so well, so hard. It's so good. My number 2, Bughouse. I love Bughouse. I love Bughouse. I love Bughouse. Bugs Eaten Alive, as its proper Christian name is. I loved Bugs Eaten Alive. I love Bughouse. I love Exterminator. I love Jumbo Grub. I love the camp, or not the camp, but the comedy. There's some slight comedy there. I love how gross it is. I love seeing other people get grossed by it. I love smiling through it and saying, you're awesome, you're amazing, you're breathtaking, like Keanu. I smile like an idiot on every run. It's scary, it's slimy, it's wet, it's flashy, it's campy sensory overload. And in my opinion, it was one of the year's definitive houses. I think if any house defined this year, I would probably say it's Bughouse. Or not defined this year, but like, what was the big standout house this year? Deadman's Pier and Bugs Eaten Alive, in my opinion. I think when we look back, and say, what were the all-time classics of Halloween Horror Nights? If we had to look at all 31 or 35 or 40 years of Halloween Horror Nights, what were the standout houses, the all-time classics? I think Bugs Eaten Alive is going to be in that conversation. It's already a cult favorite this year. I know I feel this way on 7 runs. There are people who did this like 180 times or whatever. Like, the Bugs Eaten Alive cult is strong, and I'm happy to be on the sidelines. I love the facade music. I think that's one thing that really put it over. The facade music, I live and die for theremin music. I thought it was so good. I listen to it to make me smile throughout the day. I love how it sets the tone. I love the characters that show up. Sandra, Jumbo Grub, who dances when you say hi. That one exterminator worker who's like, oh, they're biting me. Love them all. And there's some insane things I've seen the scare actors do. I remember one night we were walking through, it was the beginning of the spider chamber, and there was a scare actor who was up on like an elevated platform, and she like did a gymnastics move. She like leaned all the way over. Her feet were just about in the air, just to scream in this person's face who did not react to it because they didn't notice that this character was there. But I'm like, you're doing all that for a scare? I think you're amazing. I think you're amazing. I thought all the characters in this house are amazing. The length of this house is wicked too. It's not the longest house by any stretch, but for a bug house, it's quite long. I remember doing it the first time and I'm like, it's still going. What's going on? Because the gross factor, it escalates. There's more water spritz, bugs big and small, the ickiest feeling stuff in the face in the entire event. But ultimately, the reason it's in this spot on my list isn't because how I react with others, because it was really funny to watch other people go through this house, but through the pure fun I have even alone. I know the tagline this year is never go alone, but I did go alone quite a few times. Got to take advantage of that frequent fear. And just walking through it alone, I was still smiling like an idiot. It's not for everyone, but it was very for me, and it is the one I'll miss most when it's gone. I miss Bug House. I love Bug House. I didn't think I was going to love it this much, but I don't dream Bug Houses. I don't dream a lot, but I'm sure if I did, I'd still be in there. But my number one, I'm such a basic person because it's Universal Monsters Legends Collide. Every year I've gone, a Universal Monsters house has been my favorite house. 2019, Universal Monsters. 2021, as I said before, Goat, Bride of Frankenstein Lives. And this year it's Legends Collide. Wow, what a house. I liked it on my first run, purely for the fan service of seeing my monsters. But I was disappointed at first that it didn't seem as varied as 2019 or inspired like Bride and its storytelling. It was actually probably around my number 6, around where Bella put it on opening weekend. But as the event went on, it was slight changes, like introducing Dracula quite a bit earlier in the house. That clarified the storyline. And from that moment on, it became one of the most consistent houses of the entire event. And as I alluded to earlier, I would kick myself if I ever missed it on a visit. Same way I do if I don't even think about riding Spider-Man at Islands of Adventure. So I never did miss it. I think my last night I did it twice because it was that great. It was constantly scary. It was constantly intense. But what really did, it always honored these classic icons of horror. We mentioned the triple scare, in which Dracula flies in before you as Karst, the Mummy, and the Wolfman. They violently flank you. It's become iconic amongst frequent fearers, even knowing it could happen. Getting 2 out of 3, including the full Drac fly-in. I got Drac flying in. I thought I'd be like, oh, it's Dracula, because I know that happened. That happened on some of the other Bungie scares in the past, where I'm like, Bungie scare! He came in, and then the Wolfman went rawr, and I spun around. I'm like, I knew this was coming, but I did not expect this feeling. It was incredibly awesome. Mere Stalker Drac is what I call him. His very first appearance in what became like the version of the house. He got me so hyped as heck for the second half of the house. I'd happy clap, he'd acknowledge me, and then he'd scare me, and it was a wonderful union. The cast in here is always on point. I say is, but I mean, they is, was, always will be on point. And one thing that they did this year that really just like put this cast for me above any other cast this year, and I love so many casts, was they continue to act and follow through even after the trigger has seized. The Dracula felt like Bela Lugosi. The Mummy scare actors, they felt Mummy, but they also enhanced that character. And I mean, Wolfman's Wolfman. He's so good. All the same. It was always a show. They always kept the show alive during this house on every single run I went through, even when we were in there for a cast change, like in the middle of a cast change. I'm like, no, this house still rocks just because of everything that went into it. In my opinion, this house is always so much about what's great about Universal and Halloween Horror Nights. I love this house. It's kind of predictable if you know me that, oh yeah, of course, a Universal Monsters house is going to be number 1. But gosh, I love this house. It was so good. It was amazing. It was amazing. So I just wonder, what's part 4 going to look like? Please, Universal, give us a monster house every year. Every year, please. I'm basic. It will still be my favorite.
Invisible Man House 1. Excellent choices. See, I knew you were going to put Bug House high. I know that you love that house. Bella and I are just big babies when it comes to that house, but it is a great house. And I do think it is going to be one of the most memorable houses from this year for sure. All right, well, we'll get into my top 2. If you have been paying attention, you will know that I am a basic bitch because my top 2 are probably the top 2 most well-received houses of the year, I would say, because like Bug House is one of those ones that's great but controversial. So I feel like as far as like non-controversial fantastic houses, my top 2 are, the top 2 that are in a lot of people's lists. So the question is just which one is number 1 and which one is number 2. I feel like my number 2 could have been my number 1 if I got to do it more, even though I had a fantastic run of it. And I love both of these houses so much. I would put both of them in top houses that I've ever done at the event. Probably top 10. Eventually I'll do a top 10 of everything that I've done, but these houses are fantastic. My number 2 is Legends Collide. Only because I feel like if I did it more and I would have seen more, like I did not know that ending scene changed every time, like who won and everything. So I feel like if it was one that I could have done more, like as many times as I did Icons, which was a lot, or the original Universal Monsters house, which I also, well, not original, there've been a lot of them, but the one that the most recent one with all of them, 29, that house was great. I know they have done obviously other Universal Monsters houses before that, but that's the one I feel like a lot of people compare to just because it was more recent and it was fantastic. So I feel like if I got to do it more like I did those ones, then it would have maybe been number 1. But I loved Legends Collide. So I was walking up to this house and I had Express and I was only going for one night. And this was one that I was very excited about. I'm always excited about the Universal Monsters houses. I'm very excited about Universal Monsters at Epic Universe. Like they have such a warm spot in my heart. So I was super excited for this. And we come up to the house and I see that there's a team member talking on a walkie-talkie saying something about how there was an issue. And they as soon as we walked in, they shut the doors and didn't let anyone else in. And by the time we exited the house and looped back around that way, they were still not letting people in. So I have no idea what happened. But I was like, okay, I don't know if somebody got hurt, something happened, somebody got sick. I had no idea what I was walking into. I have a phobia of vomit. So I was like, oh my God, if someone threw up in this house and they're still letting me walk through there, I'll never forgive anyone. But I figured that probably wasn't the case. So I was just nervous because I was like, something obviously happened. Am I going to get a good run of this house, or is it going to be a limited run, like kind of like a cast change? No. It was a great run because there was nobody behind us. We got, I feel like, every single scare. I actually don't think we got the bungee scare because I don't remember the triple scare. So that's pretty cool. But we got to see every single character because I know a lot of people said they thought it was too mummy heavy. And I do think it was mummy heavy, but I love the mummy, so it didn't matter to me. There was a fantastic scene with Dracula where it's a mirror scare. And I love mirror scares. That is my favorite scare because it gets me every time. Even if I know it's going to be a mirror scare, I'm like, oh, it's a mirror scare. It's a mirror scare. So that was amazing. And I love Dracula. I thought the mummy was great. I only saw the Wolfman, I think, in the beginning and maybe one other time, but he's always great. So I just thought it was such a fun house. I love the Universal Monsters. Every time they do Universal House, I'm like, yeah. So I just got like every single scare. It was scary, but it was so much fun. It was unsettling. The vibes were immaculate. So that is my number 2. My number 1 is Dead Man's Pier. I love a nautical themed house. And I just, the second I walked in and saw that facade, I was like, yep, this is my house of the year. This is it. I was actually kind of surprised it didn't win house of the year, but then I heard it was Legends and I was like, oh, okay. All right. That's a great house too. I feel like they were probably neck and neck. Dead Man's Pier is so good. And I heard a lot of people saying they didn't think it was that scary. I got scared in it still. So I don't know. Maybe I just had a fantastic run, but the violinist was amazing. The atmosphere, the first part feels like you're walking through a story. I gasped with glee when I saw those masks where they had those lighting effects and the makeup. Just everything about that house, the dialogue, all of the scare actors were doing the best job. I love this scene with like the bar where the guy's kind of like wandering around and talking, and like that part just felt so, I don't know, it just had the huge storytelling vibe that I feel like a lot of the houses had last year, like to the max. And I just loved it. I want to live there. I wish I got to do Unmasking the Horror for that, but I've seen people's pictures and it's just as beautiful during the day. It is a gorgeous house. No notes. The misty rain feeling in the house was phenomenal. I just want to live there. It is one of my favorite houses of all time. And I feel like Adam, what was the water house that they did a couple years ago that I feel like a lot of people loved?
I don't know if they loved it.
Okay.
It was Depths of Fear.
Depths of Fear, yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I guess it was controversial. I feel like people either loved or hated it, and I was one of those people.
That was the hell block of that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of Depths of Fear, there's a picture of a mouth brooder in Dead Man's on a corkboard.
Oh.
Also, I feel like I
cool.
saw one in Hellblock Horror.
Yeah, there's a severed
Probably.
mouth brooder.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yes. So this is what I wanted Depths of Fear to be and more. I was so hyped for Depths of Fear, and then I hated it. I don't hate it is a strong word, but it was like towards the bottom of my list that year. Might have been number 10. I just didn't love it. But I loved Dead Man's Pier. So I love a nautical themed house. I think you were talking about, Adam, that you love the Sir Henry version as well. They had a nautical house. I mean, obviously it's a different house, the trail, but different. It wasn't the same thing, but they also had a nautical themed trail. And I know that you loved that one. So anything nautical themed, that's what I love about SeaWorld Orlando too, is they always have something at least that has that. So yeah, I love Dead Man's Pier. I think it's a top 10 house, or a top 10 out of 10 house, excuse me. Obviously it's in the top 10 because there's only 10. But yeah, that's my number 1 and I love it. And if you say anything bad about it, you're canceled, including Adam.
So true.
It was a great house.
Nope. Adam says it's the worst house of all time. He said he hates it.
Worse than Beetlejuice.
Hey.
No, it's not.
Watch yourself.
I wish Beetlejuice got to be.
Where did I even put Beetlejuice? Hold on, let me see if I can find my Beetlejuice. Where did I put it? I don't know. I don't have that.
Did I put it at 9 or 8? I don't remember, but I love Beetlejuice.
At 7.
I just love the movie, so I wanted it to be number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My top 2. That's a very good top 2, Kelley.
It is. I agree.
My top 2. I loved both of them very much. I feel like all of ours would be it 100% could have gone either way. What my number 2 was my number 1 the entirety of the event up until I did what is now my number 1. And that switched with one run of my number 1 house. With one run, it switched it. My number 2 is The Weeknd. Ladies and gentlemen, The Weeknd. I loved The Weeknd. I didn't go in it as much as I liked just because it's such a trek to get back there. And I hate it, especially when the chainsaws are cutting every shortcut. It pisses me off. Anyway, I loved The Weeknd. I love him. I think he is one beautiful, beautiful man. And I love his music. The first time I went through opening weekend when they only had 3 songs in the music loop. And that really, I wanted to die. It was bad. I hated the queue. But I loved the house. The visuals, walking in with the LED and oh my god, and the screens and the frog and the party, the bar, oh my god. And the ending with the mirror, it was just good. Kelley, I was dancing the whole time. I wish I got to do it more because I genuinely loved it so much. And I'm so glad. I mean, I thought it was pretty well received. I saw a lot of people saying they hate it and that they don't want pop music to be in Horror Nights. And I think that's so stupid because you can do so much. I want there to be a Lady Gaga house so bad. And I know people would absolutely rip that house to shreds, but it would probably go down in history as one of the best, in my opinion. I think it would be absolutely insane and incredible because the Universal, Orlando especially, creative team, they're nuts. Meet Dress Please. I would pay to see that. I feel like the Horror Nights creative team for here is just so insane and they can literally make any something out of literally anything. Gaga would absolutely slay. I loved The Weeknd. I love you, Abel. I want to give you a kiss. Anyway, my number 1 is Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Wake, as every person in the event except Adam. This house, oh my god. I did it only 3 or 4 times, I think. I didn't do it that much because I did it towards the end of the event. But oh my god, I had seen the pictures and the videos of that facade, but it doesn't even compare to walking in it. Oh my god. And I didn't even notice the lighthouse until the last time I did it. I just thought it was like a light like moving, but no, it was a working lighthouse in a soundstage. How do you do that? Oh my god. It was like, I don't even know what to say. Like, it was just so good, and it was cold in there, and the mist, like that, like I never saw anyone talking about the mist, and it like scared me. I loved the first guy talking. He reminds me of the captain on the Titanic, specifically the one who used to do the Titanic dinner theater. So specific. I don't know if either of you have done the Titanic dinner theater, but my dad did the Titanic museum, so I did it a lot when I was younger. But yeah, that's what that reminded me of. The LED thing, oh my god. I loved all the sailors. I loved how they looked like waterlogged. Tim Tracker and his wife said that they looked there he is, that they looked waterlogged. And I think it's just, the second to last time I did it, there was no one in front of us. Though there were like two people in front of us, they were far away. There's no one behind us. And there was like, the people in front of us were really far. There's no one behind us. And like every so often we'd see all the characters like pop out around the corner and like look to see if anyone was coming. And then they'd see us and they'd go back. And it was so funny. It just like made it better. The violin, it was beautiful. But that flying scare, I loved it. The first time, I didn't think we'd get it because I didn't see it. And I'm walking into the doorway. He's coming directly at my face, gets right in my face. I'm dying. I'm dead. It's so cool. And we walk around and I'm like looking at him. And then I like, right as I walk around the corner, he flies back and gets right in my face. So I got it both times. And it was so awesome. And then the last time I did it, I was waving bye to everything. Like I waved bye to the shovel in the facade, and I waved bye to the flying man, and he waved back at me. And I loved it. I think this is this is only my second year going, but I think this is one of the best Horror Nights houses that they've ever done, period. Because I've watched basically almost every house that they've done. I've watched a lot of Horror Nights videos, but this is like special. It's so good. And I'm sad it's your number 7, even though you liked it. The
title of this episode is Adam is canceled party, not clickbait.
Adam gets canceled for, how long have we been on? 3 hours? Adam gets canceled for 3 hours straight, not clickbait.
We have been on for 3 hours, yeah. We're pushing.
That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, my count right now is 2 hours and 46 minutes.
Wow, don't put us in front of a microphone talking about Halloween Horror Nights or we'll never stop.
I'm really glad that we hyped up this episode and we have a special intro. Like, this really does make it feel like a special now that it's going to be very, very lengthy.
Yeah.
Why watch a movie when you can listen to us?
For 2.5
Endgame
hours.
who?
No better way to spend your workday.
It's literally the length of Endgame. That puts it into perspective for some reason, because you're like, oh yeah, 2.5 hours, that's nothing. It is the length of Avengers End. It is the length of Titanic. That puts it into Titanic.
Avengers and Adam. His opinion on Dead Man's Fear.
But yeah, rankings. Wow. So slay.
Yeah, Titanic length episode for Dead Man's Pier at number 1.
Everyone's rankings except Adam's were good.
Hey, I will die for my bugs.
I will also say
I walked a half mile so many nights just to visit the bugs.
Yeah,
that's true. That's
part. I would have.
Adam, we say he has the most controversial list, but he did have the House of the Year as number 1.
Yeah, but that was expected. As Adam.
Bella.
That was expected. Yeah. It's Adam and Universal Monsters. Like, come on. That's not a read.
It's true. They go together like
Speaking of Grease, Harry Styles, Harry Ween, Danny Zuko. Amazing.
Amazing.
I would have gone and done Bugs again if it wasn't a half-mile walk. I would have done it again. I wanted to do it again.
I don't know if I would have.
I would have done it again in my Brave era. In my brave era, I would have done it. Maybe.
I would need to be feeling really brave. I'm being so brave right now.
That
was me when I went through Bughouse.
No, it was oof.
Wow. That was a party.
It was.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking around, you guys.
Yeah, that was so awesome of you guys for listening. Thank you.
This is the end of this episode. Now they've gone through our houses and our rankings and our complete thoughts on Halloween Horror Nights 31. Thank you again so much for listening. We do have more. If you why not? Over on our Patreon, last episode we had a bonus episode for episode 24 where we talked about our favorite local haunts, but we also did a bonus episode on Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. That is out now. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a $5 patron, such as Jonathan Edward and Landon Kanoki, thank you for your patronage. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/themeparkworkshop. And over on there, you will find our predictions for Halloween Horror Nights. We did pretty good this year in predicting the theme. We predicted the theme. We said 31 Halloween makes sense. I think we mentioned Scooby-Doo. That didn't happen, but and the director was on the merch, so we were close. We were halfway there. So we had some pretty good thoughts. Universal did some of the work for us, but we're going to go ahead and make our predictions over on the Patreon. Please give if you feel inclined. We do appreciate it. But with that, we're going to sign off. I'm Adam Johnson. You can find me at AdamJ_film on Twitter. Make sure you follow the show at Workshop TP on Twitter and on Instagram at Theme Park Workshop. We just did a thing where we introduced ourselves, and it was really, really cool to see all the engagement there and have so many of you start following us from that. I was really humbled and really excited and honored that you were like, oh, hey, these 3 people seem cool. So thank you so much for that.
And my name is Kelley. You can find me year-round as Killer Kells, Killer_Kells on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, Kelley with an EY, D Hoffman. It's Kelley D Hoffman. Come on around and say hi. I love talking to you guys.
And I'm Bella. You can find me on Twitter at Bella Harvey with 2 Ys. And then on Instagram at Flynn Rider's Nose. Slay.
That's been our show. Join us next week. Follow the show. Subscribe to the show. Whatever you do to get the show, we do appreciate it. And with that, I'd say happy Halloween. But you know what? I'll still say it because every day is Halloween. Thanks for listening.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Crisis.